tonight's episode of Only Murders in the Building Family Fan Chat. Not brought to you by San Dimas Dips. I am not your host.
I am. I'm Maureen, and we are joined tonight with Amanda.
Hello.
And Tiffany.
Hello.
And Bethany.
Hi.
And Josh.
Hello.
And we are coming to you from our very own podcast, which has about as many followers as Only Murders in the Building started off with. So whoop, we're right on par with them. We're
going to be on Fallon.
Yes, exactly. Hit us up. We'll be more funny than no, we won't be more funny than Martin Short.
Was it Fallon
we'll give you something. I mean, we'll be accidentally as funny as Martin Short. That's got to be worth something.
Yeah.
So we watched the show. If you guys have not seen Only Murders in the Building, we need to tell you right now, we are going to spoil the crap out of this for you. Okay. We're going to go through the entire 10 episodes, which is all that's out right now. It's renewed for season 2. Has it been renewed for 3 or just 2 so far? 2. Okay. So there is more coming. So if you have not seen Only Murders in the Building, you have got to watch it. It is so good. It's so funny. It's Steve Martin. It's Martin Short. It's Selena is her name. Selena Gomez. And it's a trio that you wouldn't think would work together. But you might think, weird that you guys are doing this Steve Martin Short show. One of the executive producers was Dan Fogelman, who created This Is Us, which is one of our fandoms. If you have not joined that group, it's This Is Us, Pearson Family Fan Club. Go back to our podcast. We've got a bunch of episodes there. We got some interview with some crew members. And also, Jamie Babbitt directed quite a bit, if not all, of these episodes of Only Murders in the Building. And she directed a lot of the Gilmore Girls episodes as well. And one other little crossover is also from Gilmore Girls, the young lady who plays Uma Heller in Only Murders in the Building also plays the incredibly vivacious and upbeat Esther in Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. And if those descriptions confuse you, they should. Go watch Year in the Life and you'll figure it out. If you have not joined our Gilmore group, that's Gilmore Girls, Gilmore Family Fan Club on Facebook. And again, go through our podcast. We've got some interviews with cast and crew from there too. We got some synopsises on there. It's going to be great. And we just kind of want to dive into some of the interactions between our main characters here. So like we said, we got Martin Short, we got Steve Martin, we got Selena Gomez. Martin Short plays Oliver Putnam, who is director extraordinaire on Broadway. Only, is he that extraordinary? Broadway?
He thinks he is.
on Broadway, off Broadway, and off Broadway.
Oh, that's right. That is what he says.
Right.
I feel like he had to have been popular at some point in time, right?
Off Broadway, yes.
Who else? Okay, so one of the things about him, this is something that we'll get into in episodes, but one of the things he talks about is his musical rendition of Splash. Did anybody else really want to see that come to life?
Yes.
So bad. I want that so bad. And I think that needs to happen in season 2.
Could be a full episode.
Flashback. Yes.
That would be a fantastic episode.
Please. I want to see I don't want to see someone die, but I want to see someone stage dive into a pool of water and actually make it into the pool of water.
In his defense, they didn't actually die. I think they all survived. Barely, but they survived.
What was it? 36 people got their necks hurt?
Something like that.
You'll get that joke
The
later.
number just keeps growing.
Oliver Putnam is a director. That's Martin Short's character. So imagine this tiny older guy who is loud and brash and amazing and hilarious, and he's walking around New York. And I think the most telling thing, if you want to know about his character, is in the opening scene in episode 1, Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez all are giving like a little monologue to kind of say who they are. And Martin Short's walking around, this big smile on his face, talking about how great New York is. And he's walking the sidewalk. He stops and he pauses, he takes a breath, and then he almost gets hit by a car. And his words are, "Do you not see this coat?" Which is bright purple.
I think he is the embodiment of the word flamboyant. It's just wonderful.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
Maybe he actually inspired that word.
Oh, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And then we have Steve Martin, who it's so good to see him. I mean, we don't see him return to classic Steve Martin until nearer the end or kind of the middle. Yeah. But the very last episode is through and through. Like that's old school Steve Martin. Yeah. That's his physical comedy best. He actually plays kind of like, he always kind of plays sort of unlikable, but still charismatic kind of guys. And this one, it's just like, he's a loner and he's antagonistic almost, and he's a bold-faced jerk in the beginning. And it's so fun to watch him play that character. I love watching him in this role. I think he's so good at it.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. And I think it kind of reveals too why it's so crazy to like go back and watch it again, knowing how the story plays out and seeing like at the beginning, well, maybe this is why he was so grumpy in this scene. And this is why that was happening. So I think a lot his character was kind of like able to open up a little bit and maybe even come back a little bit more to like classic Steve Martin, as we were saying, because you were able to, well, peel back the layers of the onions.
Yeah. Yep.
and kind of get a further glimpse of what he was going through. And of course, there was more to it than that first scene when they were attempting to peel back the onions. But I think that has a lot to do with it.
I think it was bell peppers.
Was it bell peppers?
Yeah, in the fridge. Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
Bell peppers in the
I thought you were
fridge.
talking about the proverbial onions that they talk about their first time all sitting together is what I thought.
Yeah, when they're all at the diner. And Selena Gomez on the show was so cool because I wasn't expecting like Selena Gomez. I was thinking, okay, this is a cool show. You know, you got Steve Martin, you got Martin Short, and I know we mentioned that it just didn't seem like it was that kind of combination. And suddenly here's Selena Gomez, but it just balances out so well the way they play off of each other. You have the generation gap, and I think that's so cool. And I mean, it's Selena Gomez. I mean, I know I grew up, you know, seeing Selena Gomez on TV, and you know, my friend is like super obsessed with her music, and it's so cool to like kind of see that kind of come together with a show like this. So, and I'm even wearing my Selena Gomez lip gloss, you know, to commemorate this.
That's a bonus fact. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. And Selena, if you totally want to be a sponsor, I don't mind wearing your lip gloss every episode.
Will you be our San Dimas dips, please?
Right, absolutely. So, but seeing her as Mabel was really cool. I think it was nice to see Selena get back to acting. You know, she started out acting as a child, and you know, those roles were, you know, appropriate for her age. And then she got into singing, and it got to the point where you'd hear the name Selena Gomez and you're thinking a singer versus actor. So it was so cool to see her come back to the show and, you know, see her portray a character like Mabel, and, you know, the complexities of her and everything that she was going through. And again, to see her onion peel back, you know, you don't know right away, you know, her part in the whole thing. And, you know, I'm sure we'll get to more of that as the episode goes on, but to see her as Mabel, and it was pretty cool to see a different side of her now that she's an actor again, but as an adult versus actor as a child. And it was pretty cool. And then a little nod to her heritage as well. So it's pretty cool.
And I love how her too, they made her flamboyant in almost a darker way. Like Mabel's got
Right.
the bright red headphones, the
Right.
bright yellow fluffy coat, and then she got the plaid pants and the orange shirt. Or was it an orange jacket? I don't remember. But all these really, really bright colors that she wears all the time. So it's
Yeah.
almost, it's weird because like if you do the math, they've lived in the building at the same time. All three of them have. Like Selena's entire life. She's 26. So she kind of like blends into the shadows, and her goal is like to be unnoticeable, yet she wears these really loud clothes. And in the middle of all this,
Right.
she's still so unnoticeable wearing so many loud things. And I love that as she's giving her monologue in episode 1, she's talking about how if you don't like too much, then New York is not the place for you.
Not
And
the
she's
place.
just kind of
Right.
owning her walk. She's owning how she's doing it. And I think that they did a really good job integrating that in her character and making her really interesting, because in that first episode, like I said, they all go through who they are, and we're going to kind of segue into those first episodes. But with Mabel in the first episode, you kind of want to know, what are you listening to? Like what's,
Mhm.
because she doesn't really have she doesn't have a beat to her walk. It's a very authoritative walk. But then when she's in the elevator and asks questions with the beats on, she's responding. So you kind of wonder, are you actually listening to something there? Or is this just something you
Yeah.
use to deter people from being near
Right.
you or talking to you?
Right.
Yeah, I
And
really
it's
feel like that
because-
was. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
I really feel like that was part of her personality.
Yes.
You know, just like she was saying, if you don't want the extra, get out. I think that was her extra. You know,
Yep.
it was
Mhm.
several layers of of who she is. And I think that you see that a lot of programs too, and they do a really good job of that. They'll dress someone in a specific way, and as their character evolves, that will change, and it's almost like a visual representation of who they are. And I think that's what those perfect opening scenes were with each of them. You see Oliver with his flamboyance, you see Charles there, very tidily adjusting everything in his fridge. It's like who, I mean, it was amazing. Who keeps their fridge like that? It was perfect. and Mabel, just this completely closed off, but absolutely streaming at the same time. It was just very interesting to kind of
Would
see
you
that.
call her closed off? Would you call her closed off?
I think so. I think so. The headset,
Yeah.
the glasses, and the big hat or hoodie, whatever that was. I'm closed off, but yet I'm here. I think that was her at first. I think that's kind of how they kind of set it up. It was very, I don't know. It just, to me, it felt like it was done very purposely, above and beyond her just trying to maybe be incognito.
Yeah. I can see that.
I think a lot of that was foreshadowing as well too for things to come. Obviously, they're setting the characters up. They say that themselves. He set the character up, and then they go from there. But I think that was just like a good foreshadow to what's coming.
And so these three characters, I mean, you take Steve Martin, you take Martin Short, you take Selena Gomez. I would never think put those three together in a show.
Right.
Never in a
you've got
million
gold,
years.
baby. I would never think that.
Right.
But they work because the way they've written these characters, they're all a missing piece of the other one.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I still remember seeing, I think it was like maybe episode 2. I said it, we were all watching it. I said, I can't figure out if this is the lowest point or the highest point of Steve Martin and Martin Short's career. It's like, where are they? Because it's like with Selena Gomez. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Selena Gomez. She's perfect, like a perfect actress. I know as an actress versus a singer, but I was like, where is this going? And then by like the end of the second episode, it was just like, this is gold.
Yep.
Like
Yes.
This is just this. I mean, it's like Steve Martin's been gone for 2 decades, and then boom, he just, like shakes the entire planet with this wonderful show. So it's kind of funny. It was just like a perfect ensemble, and I think the characters are like that too, because it's like really Oliver's having money issues. Who knows if he's gonna be able to stay there? So he really maybe has hit the bottom, right? He doesn't know where he's going from there. I feel like Charles is the same way too. He's probably hit rock bottom too. I mean, he's making an omelet that he's not going to eat, right? But he's making it in honor of Lucy. And so it's like they've both had that kind of rock bottom feel, and then enters Mabel, and it's just like this spark of youth and spark of life, even though it's in a very kind of sad circumstance. But it really did. I think he just kind of rejuvenated all of them and kind of added to it. So just perfect storytelling, I think.
Yeah. That's a perfect segue, because speaking of rock bottom, the first episode opens up on Martin Short and Steve Martin. I need to not stop calling them their real names. Oliver and Charles. They're racing down the stairs and they're talking about how I'm not going to leave her. We have to get Mabel. I got to get her. And then they go in her room and she's covered in blood and there's a dead body in front of her. And she says, it's not what it looks like. So it's nice that they're all kind of at rock bottom, and that's where we start the episode. Yeah. Right there. So they're clearly at their bottom. And my first time through, I didn't realize that was the end scene. My husband picked up on it, but I didn't pick up on it, because then it goes to those beautiful opening credits and that music. I mean, I was trying to think of how I could put that music to this podcast, but I'd probably copyright it and I probably can't do that. You probably kick it off. But I love that music. That opening score is so awesome and it fits so perfectly. I just love it.
There are
we were just saying that.
Yeah, there are so many different shows that the music really does set the tone, and you can tell the quality and how well you're going to accept that show for its longevity. So many shows do that. This Is Us does that. Gilmore Girls did that. It's like I compare that music to the La-Las. You know what I mean? It's just like we know that it's iconically that every time you
Mhm.
hear it, and it sticks with the show as it goes.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is going to do the same thing too. You're going to hear that, maybe somewhere else or whatnot. It's not going to be playing in the supermarket, but
Yeah.
it's going to be something that's going to be so distinct and be like, oh, that's from that Hulu show.
Yeah.
Someone's ringtone.
Yeah.
There you go. I actually am going to do that now.
And that kind of show is gutsy enough to actually give you the end scene right away in the very
Right.
beginning of the show.
Yeah.
So that was just brilliant in itself. That's something new. It's something different. And then they go into these monologues. So the opening scene is obviously a very rock bottom moment where they're all accidentally involved in this murder. But then you go and they're all separate and they're all giving these different aspects that, like, Brazos is in the street. And he's like, oh, aren't you Brazos? I used to watch you as a kid with my dad. And my dad has ALS and he can't remember you, but yes, take our picture without you in it.
That was hilarious.
Steve Martin's like, you tell your dad Brazos took that. Yeah, for sure. He won't remember though because of the ALS.
It was like
It was so
heartbreakingly funny, but because it was played very well. And I was laughing. I said, you know what? That's probably how Steve Martin actually has real interactions.
Yep.
Some millennials like, can you take my picture?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because he really is this famous actor and comedian. But there's a lot of people right now that are probably walking around New York that don't know him from, from anybody else,
I mean, look
Yeah,
at
I
his
thought that was fun.
classics.
Yeah.
The Jerk is my personal favorite Steve Martin film of all time.
I caught that reference earlier, by the way.
And nobody else in this current generation really knows who that is unless you have a grandfather or father or somebody to show you. I mean, it doesn't have to be a dude. It could be a grandmother or mother show you this film. So, I mean, and the only reason I know is because my parents watched it with us when we were kids. The only reason I know, and that's Steve Martin genre. That's the area where he really came into be. And in the 80s and 90s, he was a big star, but then he hasn't done much. So people don't really know who he is. So we see him at his rock bottom. We see Brazos at his rock bottom, kind of chasing that glory. And then we see Martin Short, he goes home alone to a dog that he has to eat with, and no one wants to talk to him in that elevator. And Mabel goes to this dilapidated apartment, who clearly she's not living the high life. And then she talks about that terrifying dream where she stabs a guy with her knitting needle. And then if she doesn't dream about it, she pictures it and then falls peacefully to sleep. Works every time.
That's New York.
Yeah. But I just think it's an interesting juxtaposition where they start with them at rock bottom, all three of them jointly involved in a murder. Then they segue into each of them at their rock bottom separately. And it's fun to watch how that progresses in the show because they actually become better together, only to be brought back low together.
Right.
So
Yeah, because you have that big climax. And then for those that caught it, you have the back of your head, wait a minute, how do they get to that point? You know it's coming. And then if you don't remember seeing it, it's like, yay, okay, So, but then you got a good setup for season 2.
Yeah,
coming.
Absolutely. So in episode 1, a lot of the meat happens, right? We have they're all in the elevator with Tim Como, and that I keep calling him Tim Como, like Tony Romo is what's in my head. But it's Tim.
We don't use those.
No.
Those are fighting words around here.
Don't insult Tim Kono. He's gone through
Don't
enough.
insult Tim Kono. He's gone through plenty.
To be fair, I love Tony Romo as a sportscaster.
Okay, I will see you guys later.
But
I like him too. So
and she's from Dallas, so she has authority here.
Ride them, Cowboys.
So we see them all in the elevator with Tim Kono, and he's obviously having an agitated discussion, and it's interesting. Once I've seen the whole thing through, it was kind of cool to go back and watch how Mabel interacts with Tim in that elevator scene, because she does react to him. She does kind of watch him through her glasses. She does kind of angle her body towards him. So there's an indication that she knows him, but you don't pick up on that because it's good writing. You're not supposed to. It's just supposed to look like a normal interaction until you get further into the series. So spoiler alert, she knows him. But they're all in the elevator, and I love I love Charles's reaction to desperately trying to close that door before Martin Short can get in there. And when Martin Short looks at me, he's like, "You got an audition?" I just thought with that amount of makeup.
What makeup?
Part of me wanted to see him take off his makeup when he went back into his apartment. I wanted Oliver to be right that he had stage makeup on. I so wanted to have stage makeup on. So that is our first glimpse of them as a throuple, right? As them together, is those three in the elevator, them interacting, and you kind of get a tone for how it's going to be, because when Martin Short reaches his floor, Charles goes ding. Even the elevator wanted that story to end, and Oliver gets up. So you kind of see this is how it's going to be, because obviously already, right? These are your three mains. You see in the beginning, they're all going to come together at some point. So it's fun to see their characters shown so clearly and their roles already displayed so clearly in that elevator scene.
Yeah, it was really kind of a perfect, how do I say, setup, because here they are in this situation where they're going to be confined together or tied together by literally the building. They're in that elevator, right? And so it just was a perfect kind of example of, hey, this is what they're going to be experiencing very soon, being tied together by only murders in the building,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we see their lives too. We see him we see Charles make the omelet by himself. We see them all sit down to the same podcast, and their different reactions are great too, right? Charles has got his big map with his Post-its. Oliver has his dog food with his dog next to him and his wine that he's drinking, and I have to assume he's eating dips because
it has to.
He's Oliver. Although I didn't catch what he was eating, even though I watched it more than once. And they're all sitting down. The fire alarm goes off at the same time, and they're all mad. And then they come together for that quintessential meeting. And I love that it's almost like this entire episode, every time the three of them are come together, it's like this shocking revelation every time they see each other, right? It starts at that booth where he's like, "Oh, do you watch it? What is in his mouth?" And then Mabel comes by and she says the same thing. And then later on the elevator, after they find out Tim Kono dies, the cop is up there that cop is foul mouthed, but I love that cop. She's so funny.
I know.
Oh, she's awesome.
I loved her.
Like, what podcast are you guys all addicted to?
She already knew.
Family
She's
Chats?
very good at her job. Exactly. That's right. Family Chats.
Yeah,
Get addicted,
exactly.
people.
Our podcast, when they're like, my favorite podcast just dropped a new episode tonight. Like, yeah, like listen, us. Gotta say that about us.
And one thing I did notice the first time around, obviously they go into the building, they find Tim Kono. All their reactions are priceless because Steve Martin is clearly freaking out. I've seen stage bodies, but that was a dead body. He killed himself. And then very interestingly, when the cop says, and I didn't notice this the first time because you're not trained to look at that right away, but the cop is looking right at Mabel, and I wish I knew that cop's name, but she's looking right at her and saying, so you don't know him, because it's only Oliver and Charles. Like, no, we're neighbors in the building. Mabel's not giving anything. And the cop asks again, stepping closer, looking right at Mabel. So you don't know him. And Mabel never offers anything other than it doesn't make sense.
Wow.
So, but you don't know. That's how good the writing is you don't catch on to that the first time you watch it, because you just think that she's in shock. She just saw this dead body. That's got to be what it is. She doesn't know him. Right.
You just assume, you make the assumption, well, they don't know him, so she doesn't know him.
Yeah.
She's in shock. Anybody would not act normal after seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
And just like even when they're getting out of the elevator, you can see the cat climbing on the couch in the lobby.
Yeah.
And it's like, you never thought of that before. If you see the cat, you're like, oh, it's just, a pet, someone in the building. It's just a day. Or you don't see the cat because it's so hidden in the background, but you watch it again and there's a little cat crawling around and it's like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
And then you realize that level of writing is throughout the entire show. Like you just mentioned, it's just really good writing. And there's things that you don't see until to look for them, and you realize they've been there this whole time.
I have to be honest, I just watched the first episode again today. And while I did notice the cat, I didn't connect it.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't connect it to, oh my gosh, what was that cat's name?
Evelyn?
Evelyn. Yes, I didn't connect it to Evelyn. Why did I connect it to Evelyn? I feel so dumb that I didn't make that dot. But that's
because you didn't want to think of the cat having that fate.
well, I mean, we already know that its leg gets broken off. I mean,
Oh boy.
that poor leg.
Detective Williams, by the way, is that cop's name.
Detective Lamb.
Williams.
Oh,
You were close.
Williams.
Williams.
I was way off, but I was close.
Lamb is close. We just call her
Yeah, of
Dr. Lamb.
course.
I had an L in there somewhere, you know, a few of them.
There was an M and an L.
But when they all come into the elevator at night, they all realize at the same time, well, most of them realize at the same time it's the garbage bag. And again, you have that Mabel runs into Charles on the elevator, the effing garbage bag. And they both have the revelation. And then they get to Oliver's floor and he's like, oh, do we all just have the same thought? The garbage bags. Oh, so not the same thought then. What was his thought?
Well, exactly. I was wondering, what was he thinking?
He
He
never
was probably
says
thinking
it.
we need to get more dip.
I was gonna say it had to have been something about
Fair
dips.
point.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Yeah.
We all just thought at 4 a.m, let's go out and have some dips.
Right. Absolutely. Because that makes total sense to him.
And that's when the idea for the podcast is born, when they go down to the dump or the basement to get all the details and they find the suicide notes, but something just doesn't sit right with them still. But the podcast is born, and the podcast is called Only Murders in the Building. And Brazos is the voice because he's got the star power, right? Mabel is the investigator because she's got, let's face it, she's got the smarts in that group. Right?
Agreed.
I mean, can I say
The
that?
Hardy Boys.
Agreed.
experience.
She's got exactly all those Hardy Boy years.
And Oliver is the quasi director who has the title but isn't real good at his job. I love that scene where he's like,
Inspiration.
he's like, hit killer harder. He goes, killer in the building. You know what I need you to do? I need you to punch in the building. In the building. You know what? Say it softer. Pull it back. Like, it's just, do you realize how opposite the directions are that you're giving him with every single take? And I kind of like want to work for Oliver Putnam and just kind of
We
experience that
should hire
chaos
him
for
for
a
our
little bit.
podcast. Can you
That'd
go do
be-
an episode?
That would
for
be an
us?
expensive podcast.
It would be.
High price tag. And I like that they go back through and they realize that it's Bunny who has his packages. So they go up to find the packages, and you hear this story from Brazos, and it is Brazos that he hears it from, right? Because that's his line from the show where he talks about his dad, and it's pulled right from the show. But while this is happening, I like that this is the other thing that they do well, is while Steve Martin or Charles is sharing this intimate story about his dad, you have this glimpse into Oliver's character where he's going to his son's house and is sharing something intimate with his son that, you know, I'm desperate, I'm scant, I have to grovel at your feet and ask for money in this really vulnerable way. And at the same time, Mabel is offering part of herself in a really vulnerable way. So they're all always connected in some way, even though they aren't always really there together. And so Mabel's talking about the Hardy Boys that she has. And it was interesting when she said, because again, you don't catch this the first time, but the second time through, she says, we used to create these mysteries in the complex that we all used to live in together. So she was very careful with her wording there to not say where she was from.
Right. She was very careful.
And that's something, and again, that's just a sign of good writing, because it's like Cruel Summer is a mystery, right? That we all loved and we want it. Well, I don't know if all of us watched it, but most of us on this podcast watch Cruel Summer, desperate to find that next clue, analyzing everything. But in this one, it's so well written that you're not actually analyzing the actors or the characters that are the three mains, because they're trying to find the crime. So your whole focus is, let's find the crime. Let's follow their clues that they find, instead of looking at the characters themselves. It's so well hidden, and it's just such a smart concept. I love it.
It is. It's just such a wonderful flow to the show. You know, it's even like we were saying earlier with the music, with the jokes, it's so well written in so many ways that it's dealing with something as gruesome as horrific murder, yet you're sitting down and you're laughing and you're having these warm fuzzies as you're watching it. And you're like, I shouldn't be having warm fuzzies watching a murder mystery, but it's just so good. And it's almost like they're giving you all of the answers. And you just don't know it. Like it's right in front of your face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think they actually hinted that when they say, I forgot exactly the words that they used, but they said, what would it be like if the podcasters were there from the beginning, you know? And it was like,
right.
and they were,
Every
Yeah.
true
So
crime podcaster.
every true, right, exactly. Every true crime podcaster was there from the beginning, and I think that was kind of something that they were almost hinting. It's like, hey, there's a lot of clues.
Do we have to be concerned about Amanda right now? Amanda runs a true crime podcast. Is she?
Oh.
Uh-oh.
How deeply are you involved in these, Amanda?
Uh-oh.
It's pretty much all I do.
That doesn't set anybody at ease.
I watch the ID Network all day.
There you go. By the way, that podcast, if you are looking for another true crime podcast, it's called Nefarious Nightmare. Nefarious Nightmare, right?
A Nefarious Nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope.
And you can find it. It's really good. It's got some good reviews and it's really good. So find it if you want to listen to more true crime.
But
You
it
know,
is
listen to
not
that one.
family friendly.
Ooh. But you can listen to it when your kids are at school. There you go.
Yes.
Or when you're driving home from work if you're with other adults in the car.
It just has language.
Yeah.
And stuff. So
And
I
murder.
was gonna say, how can any crime be
Murder.
family friendly?
Any
I don't
murder
know.
be family friendly?
I mean, only murders in the building is also not family friendly. So so remind me, how does episode 1 end? Because I don't remember where it ended off at.
oh, I just saw it like an hour ago.
oh gosh.
So let's dive into that.
It
So at the
ends
end of
where,
episode 1, we see, what do we see at the end of episode 1, guys?
well, we find out a little bit more about Mabel and her connection to Jim Kono when we see the picture of her and it says "My Hardy Boys." And we get
Did we find
first
that out at the end of
glimpse.
episode 1? I thought it was 2.
I thought it was the end of episode
Okay.
1. Yeah, because it was the big cliffhanger. All you hear her talking about her Hardy Boys. You hear her not say that she knows Tim Kono. Also not say.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you see the picture that says "My Hardy Boys," and now you have 2 mystery people. That sets you up for the next episode, and of course, the revelation that she truly does know Tim Kono.
Yeah.
And tie
And
dye.
what that means. And tie-dye guy.
And the other interesting thing about the cinematography there and the writing there is that if you go back and you watch that episode and you hear the music as Mabel's telling her story and the cinematography, how it kind of zooms in a little closer on her face as she's talking about the Hardy Boys specifically, and the music is a little bit more sinister. And then at the end, because it's near the end credits, right? When they show her the picture.
Yeah.
And so that's such a cool tie-in that they gave you a clue and you're still missing the big clue. And then at the end you see the Hardy Boy picture, like
Yeah.
and then you just kind of feel stupid at the end of every episode. It's like, oh man, I missed that. How did I miss it?
Yes, that-
How did I miss it? I know. It's really good writing and it's just fun.
Mhm.
You know?
I think overall too, I think they've really done a really good job on a lot of different things. I mean, obviously the writing has a lot to do with it, but the building itself is almost its own character.
Yeah.
I love it.
I want to go
it's
in
just-
that building.
I know
Yes.
I hope it actually exists. You know what I mean? It's just like it's perfect. It just has this overall inviting feeling to it. Just even the way, it's got like a gate that opens up into, I guess, whatever you call that in the center. It's like
The
a plaza or a
courtyard.
courtyard.
Yeah.
And then how ornate each of these, apartments are. It's just like, there's so much detail in each piece of these. And so
Yeah.
it really does feel like its own character, and it creates just this inviting, sense. It's like, hey, you know what? It's like you're just drawn in to what they're doing, and I think that was just very, very well done.
Yeah.
Very well.
And it kind of reminds me a little bit too of Rear Window, Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
And I think that was by design because the content of the show, but it's like you're watching, it has that feel, like that quality, if you will. It harnesses that essence of watching an old-fashioned classic movie like Rear Window, it has that fun, but it's obviously it's murder, but it's like that spooky feeling, but in a fun way. So it kind of reminds me of the same building of Rear Window, and I think that was done on purpose to capture that.
Mhm.
And like he was saying, I think building truly is a character in and of itself, and I love how each apartment also helps reflect the character that lives inside of it as well. It's all whimsical.
And as you hear how long each of the main characters has lived there, you realize how pivotal that building is to obviously, as the story goes on, we see how pivotal it is to every character in this story, how they all lived there, the part they had there, the role that the building had in their lives in creating the story and what it ended up being. Because I mean, really, that apartment complex or that apartment building created this whole thing. You have the girl who is one of her Hardy Boys who lived there. You had Tim Kono who lived there. You have Oliver whose dad worked there, so he lived there. You have Mabel who went to visit her aunt every summer. So it is the reason that all these people are doing what they're doing right now, even though it spans back 20 some odd years.
Speaking about interesting things about the building, we learned that because of Tim Kono's was it asthma, that they haven't been able to use their fireplaces, right?
Yeah.
In the scene before that, we see Oliver using his fireplace.
That's right. He does turn it.
Before he knows Tim Kono's not in the building anymore. Is that a clue for season 2, maybe?
Just
No, I think it's foreshadowing what comes in episode 10. But I think I think that's I didn't really pinpoint those two things and put them together, but that he absolutely does that. And Oliver flaunts every single rule there is at any point in time, if it suits him.
How many years has he not paid his dues?
And Charles has been there for 28 years, he says. And then when they're talking to Mabel at the restaurant, he says, "How did you land in here? We got it 30 years ago when it was cheap." And then and there's a point in the show where Mabel says she's only 26. So you do know that they've all been there. And Oliver's son is older than Mabel. So you do know that they've all been in the same building for the entire time that they've existed there. And I think that also gives the building an additional characteristic, I think.
Yeah.
And it's in the title.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Oliver's in the building. I was like, Arconia is not in the title, Bethany.
What?
The word building is. I got you. I'm with you. So episode 2 is, and I like the titles of the episodes are right there in the beginning. And I like that the titles of episodes are the title of the podcast.
Mhm.
The first podcast episode is True Crime. Or was it? No, it was Only Murders in the Building, wasn't it? Or was
I think it was True Crime?
Okay. So the second one is Who is Tim Kono? And everyone opens up with Brazos and from the microphone talking like this. And everything is up and down and very theatrical and very radio-like, actually, Josh. They've got your podcasting voices. Yours and Bethany, you both have podcasting / radio voices.
Oh, there you go.
Most of the time.
Most of the time.
That's Brazos thing, right? And Oliver's behind him, directing him. So they start to go through this. And this is the episode where Mabel goes in Tim Kono's apartment, right? And she finds all of those Hardy Boy books, which at first I was like, oh, he does remember her. He does think of her. And then they're all hollowed out with jewels in it. Like, maybe he doesn't.
Well, the fact that they were Hardy Boys books and not like Time Magazine or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, could
It'd
you
be
hollow
hard
out
to-
a Time Magazine book?
I was gonna say it'd be hard to
No,
hide.
you
jewels from that,
couldn't.
know.
As I was saying that, I was picturing hollowing it out, and I'm like, that's not gonna
Maybe
work.
if you
but
glued like 20 of them together
that's true. Throw them
and
off
then
the
just
set even
displayed
more.
them.
There you go.
You can hide the cash after you sell the jewels in the book. Right.
Right, there you go.
But
That's what I meant.
this is the episode where we start to get the glimpse, right, of her life before, where you see the 4 of them, you see the girl get murdered, you see that Tim Kono's like, oh, no, it wasn't Oliver, or it wasn't Oscar.
Tie-dye guy.
Oscar's his name, right?
Oscar.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything, and that's the whole. You get that's the whole beef, and so Selena Gomez Mabel kind of comes back to the apartment to facilitate getting Oscar freed and having Tim Kono do the right thing, because this has tormented her for years, that she knows her best friend is in jail or prison actually for murdering someone he never murdered and all this stuff, and so she's going back there, and Tim Kono's kind of a jerk now. He doesn't care that Oliver's in prison. He has no concern, but he's got to have something because he's looking for that green ring, right? He's gonna feel something.
I think there was something he just had put an act on.
Maybe it tormented him in a different way than it tormented Mabel. Like she needed out in the open to deal with it. He had to fix it and figure it out in private.
I mean, I think the Hardy Boy books being in his apartment spoke a lot about how he held on to those years.
Yeah. so they're all trying to figure out who Tim is, and they're doing this in various ways. And of course, Mabel's not telling them. What did you guys think about that? What do you think? Obviously, it's, she doesn't want them to know she has a tie, but what did you guys think about that?
I really think that she was kind of a little confused and like maybe a little scared of what they would think, you know what I mean? Like almost suspect her, obviously, and I think that was like she almost wanted to kind of get her feel of, okay, where is this going and what has happened, and then I'm sure there's probably a level of shock
Yeah.
also there too, because I mean, this is somebody that she knew, I mean, very well, and is now gone, you know what I mean? And she witnessed it, not the actual act, but the aftermath.
Yeah.
So it's just
It
like,
grossed me out.
yeah, so people react differently, and I think that was kind of a little bit of mix of more than one kind of emotion, maybe a little bit like what we were talking about earlier. She's this very flamboyant, but yet she's got the headset and the glasses and the hood and the beanie on.
Mm-hmm.
So she's very contained, but yet very out there at the same time. So that's almost like right along with her personality. She's like, hey, I'm in this, we're doing this,
Yeah.
we're investigating this, but I'm not giving you anything. I'm here, but I'm not,
I kind of held it against her
Yeah.
when she was keeping things. I really didn't like that. It made me kind of resent her
Yeah.
when she was doing that.
Especially when she got mad at Charles for that speech that he did from Brazos.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I just kept thinking, who are you to be mad at anybody for keeping something from somebody? Like, really? You have the biggest key to this puzzle. You have more information than anybody else, and you're holding it to yourself. And the audacity to get mad at someone else for giving you a line that they created in their own show. And she didn't even ask him about it. She just assumed you're just fake. And didn't he say that? No, that's something that he brought to the character, that was something he did because that was his life, right? That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, in fact, I just saw that a minute ago too, and I thought that was kind of funny because at first I did kind of get a little rubbed the wrong way. That when I saw it, I was kind of like, oh man, he's, it's like what's happening here? Are we diving more into like mystery? It's like what what are you trying to tell us here about this character?
Mhm.
Is he somebody to be trusted, not to be trusted? So it was kind of cool to kind of see that unravel, but at the same time, it was like, really, it's like, I get it, but I don't know. The explanation kind of helped a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And we kind of sort of understand why he's making the omelet now. Like my husband, I don't know how, my husband grasped onto that so much quicker than I did. That was his ex-girlfriend's daughter,
Yep.
correct?
Daughter.
Mhm.
Yep.
Lucy. And that's what they would eat together every morning, right? The omelet.
Yeah.
The
That's what his
omelet.
neighbor was saying too. He goes, I still smell it. It's like I can smell it from across the hall. And I think that was kind of like an homage, you know what I mean, to that point in his life, maybe even a way of grasping, onto the last little bit of maybe, happiness he had. Yeah.
And I like that being with Mabel and Oliver, because he says in episode 1, I don't mind being alone. I like being alone. But as he's with Mabel and Oliver and people are actually pulling him out, he's beginning to connect with Lucy and his ex much more. And even Mabel says, I've never gone anywhere without creating a pack. That's exactly what she's done here. She's created a pack.
Right.
And that forces them all to rely on someone else in a way that they haven't in a long time, or at least come to terms with that.
Absolutely. It's like it's almost like they're able to cope, heal, and move on with
Mhm.
each other, and then of course now they're moving on to something else they're going to have to cope and heal with. But there was a sense of resolution in their gathering. They're able to, kind of help find closure to their past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So then this is episode 3 is one of my favorites because we get to see Oliver in his flamboyant glory. This is another thing that's good about the show is each episode has a different cast member that is the beginning voiceover, and it's all from their perspective. Even though they aren't one of the main 3, everyone, I mean, they do have the main 3, but as it goes on, it picks other bit parts to be the narrator, to be the spotlight. And I love that. So this one is Oliver's. It's how well do you know your neighbors? And isn't this the one where they go and what's Evelyn's owner's name? Do you remember his name?
We'll just call him the cat owner.
Because it says Charles and Mabel question an obsessive cat lover. What's his name, Amanda?
Teddy.
Teddy.
Lover.
So isn't this the episode where they go to Teddy's house to question him? And Steve Martin goes into the freezer and he finds a dead cat in there because he can't bury him, and then he drops it and breaks off his leg and then shoves it in his pocket.
Why take the leg? You know, it's like just put it back in, you know, drop it in the freezer. Why take the leg? I mean, I guess it helped later, but I mean, still, it was kind of like fine.
I mean, like you could have casually just dropped it down the garbage disposal without turning it on, and he would have taken care of that himself later. Like no one would have known. How could he place when that happened?
It was
I
Howard.
just like dropped it anywhere.
Howard, yeah.
Howard.
Howard is
My
the
favorite
cat
too
lover.
was where he was like, if you agree to be recorded, say anything. No.
No. Okay, let's go.
We're good.
We're good to go.
I love their little reconnaissance. It's so great. It's so awkward. And everyone is left feeling very confused after those three visit their apartment. Every single one of them. And it's amazing. I love it.
I think it was very productive in a very unproductive way. you got evidence, I guess, of the cat thing they ended up using later, and the recording. But hey.
But in episode 2 is when they get their storyboards together in Charles's apartment, right? Where they have all their suspects and their tie-ins.
Yeah.
And in episode 3, isn't this the episode where Oliver went and got tie-dye sweatshirts with their podcast title on it? Didn't he do this at the meeting when that's when Harry or Howard is talking about how Evelyn died?
No, that was a little bit further down. Yeah, so
Oh.
this was just the
That's like episode 8.
yeah.
No.
This was
This
the
is the
initial
memorial. I just
I
watched
know.
it.
She
Okay.
just saw it. Tiffany's on top of it.
I know it's episode 8 because I just watched
That's the first time they have a building meeting is episode 8?
No,
No.
they have a memorial for insurance purposes, as she says, where they offer the support of the psychiatrist.
And that's where he takes all the dips is in episode 3, right? At the memorial.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does. He does have this.
Yeah.
I
And
believe
I
he
think
does
it's
this
actually
later on
episode 2, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's right. Yeah.
And that's brilliant too, where they focus so heavily on Demas dips, and there's something in this. But I just love how after the memorial, he goes and he eats stuff, and then he's just saying, hold this, hold this, hold this. And he's just packing up one by one all of the dips and all of the breads and the veggies that are on the tray. And then he never says put it down. He just has them all carry them upstairs. So it looks like he's not the only one stealing the dips.
Right.
It's amazing. I love it. I love it so much. And then this is also where, for the insurance purposes, they're having this memoriam where they're all talking about, supposed to be about Tim, and everyone's just complaining about him, how terrible he is, all the complaints about him, how that one woman couldn't wait for him to leave. And then it turns into a memoriam for Evelyn.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Did that memorial happen before or after Steve Martin took its leg with him?
Before.
Before. Yeah. So actually, I believe the actual memorial was it was actually in episode 2. Yeah. And then 3,
Mhm.
he found late.
Yeah. I'm kind of pulling him up as we talk now. So I can see.
Oh, I love it. This is just so good. There's like, this is a show about murder and it's so funny.
Yes.
So
Yes.
ridiculously funny. even in episode 1 where they go in there and they see the dead body and they're like, oh, that's a dead. I laughed so hard. I feel like I shouldn't be laughing at that, but it made me laugh so hard. So in episode 3, one of the things I love about this is because it's from Oliver's point of view, it's obviously set up like a Broadway stage. And he's got all the people up there
Right.
and he's putting them out. And Howard is in like this 1980s
Oh,
flash
God.
dance ensemble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he was trying to portray tie-dye guy, right? I think, or something like that. What was it? I don't know.
Trying to figure out who tie-dye guy is, I think is what
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
That was genius. That was it.
So
By the way, if I had a New York apartment, I'd probably have a stage in my room too. I mean,
Oh.
my apartment also like that.
I was
that you're
thinking
given.
about that. I was like, how can we set a stage? I want a stage in my house.
And
wish
then in
my-
episode 4, we see State.
Well, wait,
Oh
in
my.
episode 3, like how does he
Oh yeah, we're gonna forget
how
that.
does he kick them out though? Because there's he picks, who does he pick to stand out? Is Howard the one who has to stand forward and everyone else is back?
Yes, I think at that point, I think everything kind of points towards Howard. So I think that's why he kind of picks him out, because he seems like he's the lead, the lead suspect. And I think that's why it makes sense when he's referenced later on too, and why. But if memory serves, yeah, it's Howard.
Because they don't actually disprove he's the murderer at that point. They're just like, no, he's not the murderer. He loves his cat, kind of thing, right?
I think what it is what convinces them that he's not it is that he faints at the sight of blood. Because remember, that's when
Oh yeah.
Charles had the nosebleed and he fainted. So he said, okay, well, if the infamous nosebleed, I think that was what finally convinced them to put it to rest, that there's no way this guy committed this crime if he fainted at a nosebleed. Now he could have faked
Yeah.
it, but at that
Yeah.
point, would he really have known he was a suspect though? Would he have known to fake it? You know? So yeah.
Yeah, no, probably not.
Yeah,
Probably
I'm
not.
guessing the guy that faints at a drop of blood coming out of somebody's nose would probably not have done
Probably not
what-
shoot somebody in the
No.
face.
No.
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean-
think so. Unless
Yeah.
he's an accomplice, because, well, I guess we're going to get to the method of murder later, but you would have just
Yes.
had to have been an accomplice and not the actual.
And by this time too, they're willing to pay that extra mile for information on Tim Kono and why he died, the complaints about him. And this happened a little bit ago, but they had Oliver convinced Charles to buy those, like, what was it, 250 cases of gut milk.
Gut milk.
Oh gosh.
Gut milk.
Wasn't it like 250
Oh my
cases?
goodness.
Oh no, I don't remember. Yeah, I think it was something like that. And what I love is that they keep that throughout the rest of the entire.
He spent money on it. So
Oh,
everyone
gosh.
drinks it.
It's
Yes.
14% alcohol.
That's why this show is so
I almost
great.
peed my pants when they said that. I was like, so did you
I was
hear
like,
that? And I
"Ew."
loved it. Dave was like, oh my gosh. Who needs milk with 13% alcohol? Like, and in the first time
The Martin
Jan and
Short
Charles are having a romantic dinner, they're drinking gut milk instead of like wine. And I think
Get the wine.
I'm fairly certain that every time the three of them get together at Charles's apartment, they each pour a glass of gut milk, and they usually get together
This
in the
explains
morning.
everything.
So like they're drinking 13% alcohol in a drink right away in the morning
All day.
because it has the word milk on it.
I love it.
Just there's not a single character in this ensemble cast, not a single one that is uninteresting. There just isn't. They're all interesting, and I love that girl. Sold the gut milk. She's just phenomenal.
Yeah, and the moment Charles walked up and the reaction, like to seeing him and everything, I was like, no. Oh man, okay, never mind. It's over. It's great.
Oh,
So good.
Okay.
episode 4 really got me.
Oh
The
my gosh.
sting.
I almost peed my pants several
The
times.
Wow.
sting. Oh my gosh.
And I
What
didn't
is-
realize that we get introduced to him in 3, actually, at the end of 3.
The 3.
Yeah.
In the
I forgot-
elevator.
In the elevator.
yeah.
And also, we got introduced to Teddy at the same time, too.
Teddy.
Mhm.
San Dimas.
Oh yeah. I
I
love
think-
Nathan Lane.
Yeah.
Nathan Lane is he's perfect. It's like the absolute best. Like,
Every
it-
role he does, he's gold.
but you put
Yes.
him with Martin Short, and it's just something else. It's just
Just gold.
Mhm.
Awesome in this. Nathan Lane, awesome.
Yes.
I love how the show is kind of introducing a brand new generation to people like Nathan Lane and Steve Martin and Martin Short, you know, because you're going to have a lot of like Selena Gomez fans that are going to tune in just for that. And suddenly they have this whole comedy world that started before their time. They're going to get to discover all of that,
Mhm.
you know, through this
Yeah.
show. So I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think it's about time. It's we've gotten
Mhm,
so far away from the core of what true comedy is.
Yeah,
mhm.
Let's ready the old ways and bring in some cool guys.
absolutely.
Let's do this.
And I love that we get that even the way they show that Oliver's relationship to Teddy is really well done because Teddy is the one who would pay for Oliver's productions. And he was the one who paid for the splash bomb.
Oh gosh.
And we alluded to that in the beginning. But what happened was it was a live rendition of Splash, and on stage there was supposed to be this pool beneath the floor that opened up, and it was like 39 people, 36 people, something like that, men were supposed to jump up the stairs in this pool, but the pool didn't open up in time. So as they jumped, the pool was opening little by little by little, but as they jumped, the guys were jumping just behind the stage opening up. So they all landed on their heads. The audience members got to watch these Broadway actors
God.
land on their heads and their neck and be hospitalized. None of them died, which was a huge
Like
selling
thud.
point for Oliver. Like that's his
Thud,
big-
thud.
Nobody died. We're fine. We're great.
We're okay.
But it was like
Nobody
39
died.
neck injuries.
Really gives it a new meaning to break a leg.
It does break a neck. Let's
Wow.
go.
Wait a minute.
So with Sting, what is the song that's playing in the elevator? Remind me. What is the song that keeps playing every time they talk about Sting?
Oh, I don't remember.
Because he was in the elevator when he was with them and he was like humming it. I was like, oh, do you get it, Dave? And he was like, what? David is my husband, for those listeners who don't know. Because this was our date night show. So if you don't think this is for you, like my husband and I will watch this for date night. It's that good.
Oh, it's that good. Absolutely.
Wow.
I remember, it was so funny, them introducing Sting, and it's just like, again, Sting is somebody who is timeless, right? But yet there's some current generations that may not instantly recognize him,
Yep.
seeing him, right? They may recognize a song or whatever from there, but they're not going to go, oh, I know who that is the moment maybe they see him. So again, it's introducing new things that really have not gone away or really have not gone out of how to say style, but bringing you focus back to them. But I thought it was such a funny afterwards, such a funny storyline, because I was like, if that guy hurt that dog, I don't care who it is.
Right.
I was like, no.
That did not just happen.
It's like, I like this show.
Oh, I was thinking that. I was like, there's no way. Like, it's Sting. That can't be real. And then they make it seem like that's what's happening. It's like, no. There's just no way. Yeah.
Well, I like that we see those notes, and that let's talk about that, because you're talking about poisoning of the dog, right?
Yeah, Winnie. Yeah.
And
So I mean,
what made him
when he-
think Sting was there in the elevator, and Sting's like, no, I hate dogs. Right? Is that what it was?
yeah, exactly. That's what made him think it, because
Right.
I believe the dog almost. What did he do? I guess he kind of not bit his leg, but just kind of
He was sniffing his feet,
sniffing his feet.
snapping
Yeah.
at him, I think. I think he was just
And-
investigating. He was curious. He was just kind of, exploring his surroundings, which in this case was Sting. And Sting didn't like that. He was like, just get the dog away from me. Until he was very ominously saying, get the dog away from me. And the next scene, that poor dog's been poisoned. And you're just sitting there thinking, like, I'm not just watching this. Like, this did not just happen in front of me.
Yeah.
There's
So
so many good Sting parts in there. So when he makes up that song, and
I'm
starts
watching this
singing.
Sting episode right now. That's why I keep covering my mouth, because it just
Singing the song about the man he did not murder, and the lady's like, "What are you doing?"
I know. The funny thing is that I have a feeling maybe that there has been real experiences that way, so maybe that's why they wrote it in.
You never know.
And then we also this episode get to meet Tina Fey's character.
Andy.
What was her name?
Simpson.
Yeah. And I thought that was
Cinda.
Cinda. Thank you.
Cinda
Thank you.
Canning.
yep, that's what it was.
that was kind of funny because it's like, let's go to the, how do I say, the experts, let's go talk to them. And then what does she do? End up making only murderers in the building. Like, who would have thought of that?
Only murderers
And
in the building.
I loved her assistant, Poppy.
Yes.
Poppy.
That was great.
Do they all look like
He's like,
Tina
"There's
Fey,
3
too?
of them."
Every single assistant looked just like Tina Fey.
Yes.
Teddy clones.
That was but it was a work uniform. When I saw that, I immediately thought of Jess coming downstairs to Luke's with the backwards baseball cap and the plaid shirt. And he's like, "What? I just thought this was the uniform to work here." Like when I saw all of them sitting there looking just like her, like that image just popped into my head of that scene on Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. The song, by the way, that's playing is "Don't Stand So Close to Me,"
Ah,
because isn't that what Sting says to Oliver?
yeah, and that's what the
"Don't
dog
stand
was
so close to
doing
me."
too.
The dog was
The
standing,
dog was standing too close. See, I really think that that's what put it in Oliver's mind.
It was the
This is
dog's
genius.
fault the whole
It's just
time.
genius.
Oh man.
And in this episode 2 and episode 4 is when Jan, and you see the sparks start to fly between Jan and Charles.
Yes.
And she walks on the elevator with a shirt that says, "The only thing sexier than a bassoon is me with a bassoon."
Oh my god.
What?
I love that shirt.
It's like this knitted sweater, which is the best part. It's a knitted sweater that has frilly cap sleeves over the long sleeve that's coming out. So it's like the most unsexy shirt you could possibly imagine. And that's what it says on it. It looks like it was hand knit by a grandmother. It was like a knitted sweater. It's so funny.
I almost wanted to say, you got that from Michael Scott, didn't you?
Yeah. That's what I was like, "There's Holly." And my husband was like, "Who?" Like, "I've never been more disappointed in you than I am right now."
Oh,
My entire
man.
life. What is the matter with you? I had to explain to him who Holly was. Ugh.
Oh man.
I know.
Sorry about
I was
that.
excited right away when I saw her name.
Oh.
So Tina Fey obviously thinks that they're insane.
Yes.
Right.
Don't
And
they
she
tell her
knows
they
it.
think it's Sting?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Oliver doesn't tell her. He uses code, or what he thinks is code, right?
Code,
And he's
yeah.
like, "We can't tell you who it is because it's someone very high profile. It's
Mhm.
Sting. It's Sting." Doesn't he say something like that?
I love it.
Oh, it's just that comedic timing. It's just so perfect.
And this is where we
Oh,
really see
man.
that Jan is the song that she plays for Charles with her oboe is "Do You Think I'm Sexy" by Rod
Yeah.
Stewart. Do you think I'm sexy? Like that song. That's what she starts playing on the bassoon
On the bassoon.
to Charles.
Well, they were kind of doing it back and forth to each other, right? And that's the part.
Yeah. What was he doing though? Because he wasn't playing a musical instrument. What was he doing it back with?
No, he was playing the it's not like I'll actually called a accordion.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I can't remember the name of the thing right now.
Yep. I remember that now. Oh my gosh, I forgot he had that.
But he is actually in real life famous for playing the banjo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
They
I did
should
know
have had
that.
to play the banjo in it.
That wouldn't have been very geeky.
Really?
I
They
mean,
needed something
that's
to
kind of coming back. That's like grassroots. Maybe for an
Sure.
old guy to be playing that to a bassoonist, maybe it would be kind of geeky. I don't know.
hear.
What was the joke? I'll be what was it, bassooning you later or something
Yep.
like that?
I'll be seeing you, but no, what?
I'll bassooning you later.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what it was?
Her jokes
Oh boy.
were so awesome in a really terrible dad joke sort of way. They were so good. So
In a really awful, spoiler alert, murdering kind of way.
and even in that episode, she was just coming out with a hot right and left, just like nobody's business. So they go to, how do they get it? Remind me, how do they get into Sting's apartment? They just go up there and get, because there was
They
like,
baked a turkey.
oh yeah,
They
that's
baked
right.
him a
Oh my god.
Turkey, find your turkey. And they just
Who does
they
that?
were like, what do we use for a turkey? Oh, I just baked him a turkey.
See,
Like it's the most normal thing ever to just randomly show up with a whole freaking turkey. Really?
Nobody has ever done that to me, and I'm very
No.
disappointed.
And
Nope.
why don't more people do this?
I'm telling you, I'm just enamored though. It's just like Martin Short's just, you know, that I'm sure somebody had to think of that in the writer's room, but somehow, you know, I don't know. I feel like he was involved in that decision to say, oh, well, let's just bake a turkey. Get it?
Baking stinger turkey, you know.
I mean, knowing Martin Short and Steve Martin's caliber, you have to imagine they had a hand in the writing. They may not have been
Absolutely.
the
Well,
writers,
I
but you
think
know that
they-
their comedic timing and their abilities had to have taken some effect in that writer's room.
No, I think if you watch the credits, they were written
Okay, good.
by. I know Steve Martin did a lot of writing.
Yeah, Steve Martin did a lot of
I'm
writing.
assuming Martin Short did. Yeah, he wrote a lot of the episodes.
I can look right now on
But
IMDb.
Yeah, I know there were other writers involved as well, but I mean, the show is just so good. You know that it wasn't just here's a script and they're starring in it. You know, they had to be involved. You know, from the get go in the writing and you know in the delivery of it all.
No, I mean the only ones we know that wrote is Steve Martin.
Hmm.
Because there's John Hoffman, Steve Martin, Madeline George, Stephen
Oh.
Malarkey, Ben Philippe, Kristen Newman. I mean, nobody else I really know.
I'm kind of surprised Martin Short's not on there.
I know.
Another, if you want to,
Yeah.
okay, for all you people who are watching this podcast, who are watching because we do like Teen Wolf, Vampire Diaries, and Gilmore Girls and stuff like that, and that's as old school as you get. Go look up the movie Clifford, and I'm not talking about the big red dog. I mean, go look up Martin Short's movie Clifford.
Clifford.
Oh my gosh. Amazing masterpiece of comedy gold. It is so good. So good. That's all I'll say. The Jerk and the Clifford. The Jerk and
The
Martin
Clifford.
Short's Clifford. Those are the two movies you need to go watch. So their wallpapers in these apartments are glorious.
Oh gosh.
Absolutely.
Charles has like this 3D like square cube thing going on in his entryway. Is she the head of the apartment? Is it Bonnie or it starts with a B?
Bunny.
Bunny,
Bunny.
that's what it is. But you go into Bunny's apartment and she's got that really, I'm gonna feel bad saying this, but like the old lady floral all over the place. You go into Oliver's apartment and it's like crazy eccentric, like different patterns. So like I love that all these apartment buildings are giving you pieces of who these characters are without you actually,
Yes.
you don't have to really know the characters to understand them a little bit, even by the decor. As you
Yeah,
walk
even-
into that magnificent entryway.
I mean, even where Selena's living
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah.
It's messy, it's not finished. It all their apartments really do mirror their characters.
And Selena's even starting that painting on the wall, right? Of the actual building.
Right.
It's got
Yeah.
those windows.
Mhm.
It's still in progress.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Let's remind people how that Sting meeting goes. And then, so we're going to bring Sting a morning turkey. And he says, yeah, I know. It's weird. But I figure if we also brought coffee,
That
That
fixes
makes
it.
everything okay. It fixed
Coffee
it. That
fixes
did it.
everything.
Coffee and turkey.
It's kind of like Thanksgiving dinner when you drink the coffee after the turkey to wake yourself up. so you don't go
Exactly.
into food
Coffee
coma.
makes you the turkey makes you tired. The coffee wakes you up. It's
and then
perfect
Steve
plan.
Martin says,
There you go.
exactly. No one ever brings a turkey with bad intentions. Where is this rule written?
What?
Where is this a thing? But I'm going to use it from now on. Thanksgiving, no, can't possibly have any
Who
ill
brings
intentions
a
against any
turkey
of you.
unless it's Thanksgiving? So
Okay.
a turkey arrived at Sting's apartment.
With them, obviously,
Oh.
Sting didn't kill somebody. He didn't kill the dog. And they get really, that song, Don't Stand So Close to Me, starts coming on again. What did they do for the recording there? Because they kept getting really close and like bending over Sting to get him to agree to the recording, didn't they? Didn't Sting say,
They
"Are you trying to record
or
me
they're
right
trying
now?"
to lean in. I
Yeah,
think so.
I remember he had it was Charles that had it, and he kept leaning in. I forgot exactly what he was saying, but he used so many different words to kind of like say, yeah, if you don't want to be recorded kind of the same way, as he did before. It was just like incredibly awkward, but hilarious at the same time. And his
it's good
assistant was catching on to all of it the whole time.
Yeah.
She's trying to the whole time trying to stop what's happening. And then Sting's relief when he hears, wait, he was murdered? Like he did not kill himself. Like I think that was just so comedic the way he delivered that. And of course that's what inspired the song that he wrote. Yeah.
That song was something else.
Yes.
I think you should publish
Because
that.
he's been it's like number one, top 40.
And at the end of this episode, obviously after they find out it's not Sting, isn't that when Oliver's son comes over and says, don't you know who that is? That's Mabel. She used to live with, she used to hang out with Tim Kono. You need to be careful around her. And that's the first time. So it's halfway through. Well, I mean, technically halfway through. It's the end of episode 4 into the beginning of episode 5, when that's the first time Charles and Oliver find out that she has known Tim Kono the entire time and haven't said anything until episode 5 is them following her with Oliver. Because obviously, or Oscar, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. So that's when we kind of get to know Tie-Dye Guy a little bit more. And get that
well, that's his first appearance, right? Because she thinks she's being followed by someone nefarious. Ha! Yeah. Nefarious.
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 She turns around,
yeah, they leave the episode.
Yeah.
She actually attacks him, I think, when she
that's
kind
in
of pins
episode
him
5,
down
isn't it?
and realize. I think it's the beginning of
episode 5.
Episode 5.
She levels him on the ground, doesn't she?
She does, yeah.
And in the beginning of episode 1, she's talking about how New York is filled with powerful women.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
She's from New York.
She's from New York, or that's true.
Yeah.
So then that's when the
go ahead.
No, I just think that's when we kind of get a little bit more into that backstory of them two. And of course, obviously we realize that he's been in prison for what, 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 years.
Because she's 26.
28.
I think she ends up correcting him that she's 28. I think he thinks they think she's 26 and he goes, actually, I'm 28.
Yeah. I think she says she's 28.
So they were 18.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
28. Which makes me think, I wonder if Oscar truly was 18 already, if he was 17, if he only went away for 10 years, what they actually tried him as an adult or juvenile, and how they convicted him that it was 10 years versus, I was thinking they probably tried him as a juvenile. It was only 10 years because he was underage, but I wonder if he had hit the 18 mark and maybe they just thought of it as manslaughter or something.
I mean, a lot of 16, 17-year-olds are tried as adults.
Yeah.
As adults.
So even then, I mean, if we're getting down to the
nitty gritty.
Yeah.
To the details.
Details of it. I mean,
the details of it all.
Plus two, he was, I guess there wasn't a whole lot of witnesses. He was just the one, the most likely suspect.
That's very true.
And the Demas boy.
Yeah, but
yeah,
that
true.
That story,
which we didn't know about yet.
So in this episode, in episode 5, they found another way to bring in podcasts. Right when they're following her, and his Oliver's like, "I got a car, let's follow her." Oh no, I don't drive. You have to drive. It's this old beat up, like 1,000-year-old vehicle that barely runs, barely moves, and it doesn't take normal gas, does it? Wasn't that part of the problem? Is it didn't take normal gas, and that's why they couldn't fill it up at the gas station? Or no, there was smoke coming out.
Yeah,
the guy,
so.
There was
the
some
guy
other
was
problem.
like, "Oh no, you can't drive that."
Yeah.
And they had their own podcast, which was what was the name of it? It was a landscaping
Horticulture
thing.
Homies.
Horticulture Homies.
Yes. Yes. Okay, and now those guys are actual podcasters, if I understand.
Are they really?
I think so. Somebody mentioned that. Okay, I could be totally wrong. I need to look that up now. Okay, he has quite a few. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so he does NPR. He does call and response. he does, yo, is this racist? Uh, I kind of want to hear that one. Yeah, so he does have quite a few. So I knew he was involved in radio or podcast somehow. So it wasn't actually horticultural homies, but I knew it was something. So I don't know, maybe they did some spoof joke or something and ran it. But I knew they were actually.
So we find out that they meet horticulture homies who are real podcasters in real life, or at least Roy Wood Jr. is. And I think the funny thing there is like, oh, we're podcasters too. Like, oh, how many followers do you have? And the horticulture homies have like thousands upon thousands. Like, how many do you have? Like, oh yeah. And they never give a number. They just leave it. They're just done. We're not gonna talk about that anymore.
Just
and then they threw out
skirt around it.
and then they threw out their contact, which was Tina Basecape. Like, oh yeah, she's our homegirl. Oh, so we have nothing to offer you then. That's great.
They were gonna try to name drop there, but I just
Oliver is just so excited about these people. And obviously it's Oliver who thinks that Mabel is now connected to Tim Kono's murder. And it's Charles who's like, no. I don't think so. I don't think so. But he's fighting the urge to say Mabel is the murderer. Right.
Yeah.
So they follow them to this tattoo place, and then they go in there. What did Oliver bring her? Did he bring her flowers and a sandwich or something? What did he bring her? He brought her something weird. Didn't he come in with a gift?
I think food.
I think it was something to eat.
Use this item of food before I accuse you of murdering your best friend.
Which sounds like Oliver.
It does. So we find out at the end of this episode that, he's trying to find jewels. And this is the first time that Mabel's like, it does fit because I found all of these. Like, dumped them all out on the pool table, all the jewels that he had been hoarding, buying. And then she says that he's trying to find this one ring. What was on the dead girl? And that's when she says, no, it wasn't on her when she died.
And they're like, how did you know?
Yeah.
That was a big ending.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of sets it up in a nice, interesting way. They always set it up interestingly. Because did anyone think Mabel did it at this point?
No.
Right?
No.
Because she's desperately trying to find the killer, and she's doing it on her
Right.
own as well as with them. So she's not. But then with the ring comment, it's like, well, we know you didn't kill her because Tim ran up to you. So how close were you to that dead body that you knew she didn't have a ring on her hand? So it was very curious where it was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
It just deepened the conspiracy.
absolutely. And we are in the home stretch here. We are in episode 6, where Detective Williams, man, I love that girl. She's just
Awesome.
she's a foul-mouthed, awesome detective. And I love it. I'm here for it. So she starts to have questions about this murder. Maybe it's not a murder. Maybe someone really doesn't want me to do more digging. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the police department is saying, nope, stop?
Because it was easier.
Yeah,
At least-
nothing nefarious.
Well, we'll have to wait to see in further seasons if they don't do anything further from there. Nice building, and I can imagine that somebody of power probably also lives in that building. So who knows? But I do think it was probably just easier for them to be like, open and close case. You see that in crime shows. I'm sure it probably happened in Brazos, it's like, okay, we got extra evidence that could prolong this, but it's just going to be a lot easier to just say this happened and we're going to ignore that and move on. So I have a feeling that's probably what happened.
Brazos. Sorry, I'm still stuck on that.
It's great.
That's a good point, though, because she doesn't really say it's, she just says, there's a cease and desist, but her gut's telling her it's wrong.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when she starts looking in a little deeper, and we see here
That's
that
when she gives him the phone.
at the end of the episode, right,
Mhm.
it's at the very end of the episode. But my favorite part about this episode is when Mabel brings Charles and Oliver and Oscar to her mother's house. And he's like, Steve Martin, Charles is like, yeah, and we have like 17 followers now. And they're like, really? He's like, yeah, is that good? And Oscar goes, no,
No.
that's terrible. They're so proud of that 17 though. They're so proud.
Because like 2 or 3 of them were themselves,
Yeah.
above and beyond, like multiple packages.
I love it.
And they're all creating accounts just so that they can follow themselves and see their numbers rise.
Yep. So this woman is, I think it's funny that when Detective Williams goes into her house, she sees her, I don't know if it's her wife or her girlfriend, but she's listening to Only Murders in the Building. And she comes in, she's like, no. Turn that crap off. We're not doing that. This is an open shut case. It is a suicide. And then she goes, she's like, crap, I don't think it's a suicide. These idiots were right. Shoot. I feel like she had more expletives in her thing, but that's my censored version of what she would have said.
I love that sense of realization though. It's just like, oh man.
Like, man.
And this is when we get to see Jimmy Fallon also in this episode.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
right.
Was it Fallon or Kimmel? I couldn't remember.
No, it's Fallon.
It's Fallon. It was Fallon.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I really thought that was going to go a different way when Oliver's sitting there talking with Teddy. I seriously thought it was like, well, there goes that idea. It's like he's not gonna do anything for him now. It's just like it's back to the way it was. But no, I was just like totally surprised. And what does he tell them? He's like, do you know how famous Fallon is back home?
They're all watching and they're jealous.
Or is it my Nana, whatever is gonna be so
That story that he told about his grandmother and everything, it was like creepy, like really creepy, really disturbing. And so he's also like, you think, no, that's too easy for it to be him because he's giving you all the stuff right there. And the brilliant thing about that is it's not him, but he's doing something really, really terrible and really, really disturbing on a similar level, but not as bad as murder. Nefarious, yes, very nefarious. So again, they're just handing you the information and you think there's no way. So you just kind of bypass it and don't really think about it because it's, why would they spoon feed you that?
Yeah.
They end the episode with the detective sending her the phone, Tim Kono's phone. Until they're chasing on these rabbit holes. So in this episode, do they think it's Demas?
Not yet. So when he gets the check, the $50,000 check, earlier in the episode when they're at the tattoo shop, they learn that Tim Kono is waiting for Angel.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
When they get the check, they realize that it's made from Angel. So
who do they think it is in episode 6? Do they know? Are they still searching?
I think they're still trying to figure it out. They've obviously ruled out tie-dye guy and everybody else.
Because Fallon episode was talking about how these ridiculous people thought it was Sting, right? It was Tina Fey talking about that. That's what it was.
Right.
And
I think that was their current suspect. And they just
he wasn't their suspect anymore, but that was what Tina Fey was telling Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
Right. So he was looking for funding. He was looking for sponsorship because we find out Oliver is about to get evicted from his house. Like he's got an eviction notice and he's like, okay, I gotta leave or I gotta come up with this money. And also the episode where his dog was poisoned, that's when the notes started arriving on the doors.
Yeah.
All of them too. Like I'm watching you. You better stop or else I'm gonna get you. Ha ha ha.
I'll be suing you later.
Do you think that is why she made that connection to Charles? Is because he was doing this podcast? Or do you think that it was she's just bat crazy and she was like, let's try this guy?
I think it was both.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of an escape answer, but I think it's both. I think in her craziness, and because of the podcast, I think what's the saying? You keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
Enemies closer.
Yeah,
so, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that does kind of make sense.
Yeah,
and I guess
I'm sorry. Good.
No, it's okay. I said I guess she put the note on the door so that way if anybody was in the hallway, maybe they saw that. Because if she's going to her apartment by herself, unless she thought at some point one of them was going to go to the apartment with her or Charles was going to be there and he'd see the note. But if she was the only one finding the note, it doesn't make sense that she would do that. But she probably put it in case she did have an audience at some point. Like, hey,
Mhm.
here's evidence it was there, and it kind of takes the heat off of her.
Yeah, that's true. We're
Yeah,
into
the big
episode
things.
7 now. And the episode
Oh,
from-
episode 7.
Episode
Episodes-
7.
was
sorry.
magical.
Yeah, I heard somebody once say that it may go down as the greatest television episode in modern history.
Oh wow.
And I don't know if I'd necessarily say that myself, but I think it was very masterfully
Mhm.
done, because
Yeah.
it was just like, I mean, obviously there was very little dialogue, but yet, I mean,
There
we
was
were
no
still like,
dialogue, wasn't there?
well, yeah, you could hear
I think there were, like, 3
muffled
words.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there was like just a couple, but there really was no other dialogue other than just muffles here and there. And so, just to give you an idea of the way we watch TV, I've got a full, surround sound system, and it's not small, and that's how we watch regular TV, right?
Mhm.
And so, sound is a huge part of our viewing experience. And there to be no dialogue and very muffled sounds throughout this entire episode, I was a little discouraged at first, but it drew me in, and it was just like, oh, okay. So by the time it was over, it just was kind of like you had experienced it versus watching it, and I think that's why so many
Yes.
people were like, "This is insane."
Do you know what the episode was all about?
No.
Tiffany, do you know what I'm about to say?
Yes.
I said, do you know what this episode was? It was all
Well, I know-
non-verbal.
Yeah.
Nonverbal. It was the Hudsberger episode.
They didn't know what I was going to say. I was wondering if you were going to tell where I was leading in with that, because I say that in like every single podcast episode. The
Nonverbal.
first one I've never said it. I haven't said it on yet.
Yeah.
So
You got to
I
say
actually
nonverbal.
got an entirely non-verbal episode, and it was like my candy.
No, and see, you have to have very, very good actors and very, very good directing
Yep.
Yes.
when you do that. And I guarantee there was so many takes and so many different things. That's why you have the caliber of people like Nathan Lane,
Mhm.
in these shows. There was an episode of a show a lot of people might recognize, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yep.
And there was an episode where the big bad of that episode took the voices of everybody
Oh, I
in their
remember that.
town.
Yep.
And
Wow.
when people first saw that too, of course, Buffy was made for a young generation, at that time, of course, it was more for that teen, kind of thing. And again, it's all about sound and flash and, just action and, let's just, bring it all together. And this episode was just so different than everything
Yeah.
else. And it was creepy and it was odd, but it drew you in, and it really showed the range that the actors had, that they didn't even need to use their voices
Mhm.
to get their point across.
Exactly.
And you don't see that very often in programs. And when you do, it has to be done really, really well. And this was done
Mhm.
really,
Yeah.
really well.
It was.
So for those of you who are a little behind on what we're talking about, this was an ASL episode, basically. The boy from 6B is episode 7, and Teddy Demas's son, we find out, is deaf. And so this episode is all done from his perspective. So you get to see a lot of that. And I love when they go into the house and they find because they have to be quiet. I don't know if they know that he's deaf necessarily. And where there is
No.
talking is we see how Nathan Lane reacted to him when he was a kid. New stuff. There is talking there when he's like hitting him in the head saying, you have to hear it. Can't you hear it? And that's how we kind of, connect the dots, that sort of thing. But they break into that room and they find the urn, all those urns, the shelves and shelves and shelves of urns, which is horrifying when you think that this person is a murderer. And you find this locked secret room where there's like 50 different urns. Like, oh, how many people does this guy kill? And just sit there and you're stuck with them, because what are you going to do? You're going to make yourself known to this guy you think just killed 50 people? Probably not. So you're just stuck in what you think is ashes. But I like the tie-in to that night 10 years ago, right? Where So Theo is these kids, now the Hardy Boys, Mabel's pack, they would break into apartments and they would take things from there, or they just hang out. And that's how they create their mysteries, is they would go into all these other people's apartments. So they knew every room, every inch of the room, perfectly well, which kind of ties into episode 1 when
Right.
Steve Martin's like, okay, so this is the type of layout this room is. So you're going to go this way where there's this. And Mabel's just watching him because she clearly knows the layout of
Knows
all those
already.
apartments.
Right.
This particular episode ties back to where they break into their apartment and Theo is afraid. So he hides in the locked room with the little peephole. And we see that's where Mabel's girlfriend, the girl on that New Year's Eve night, stole that green ring. It was from the Demuses.
Zoe.
Zoe, that's her name, yeah. And she sees Theo through that hole. And she kind of, tells him that she thinks he's cute, whatever signs actually that she thinks he's cute.
In ASL,
Yeah,
yeah.
she signs it to him. And so he's like, oh, sweet. Hey, I've got a connection here. Let's do this. And then we find out by the end of this episode that Theo is the one who pushes her off the roof.
Wow.
And where was Oscar when this happened? Was he just coming up on it? Or because Tim was the one who came up on it, right? On the scene when he shoved him over.
Yeah.
Where was
Tim's
Oscar?
I believe, didn't they?
They had an argument.
Yeah. They had the argument and then left, and then that's why
He
Theo
left.
came in. So yeah, they argued and then left, and then that's when Theo came in to kind of, I guess, in his mind, console, even though he necessarily wasn't really. I don't know. They were just kind
I
of
think he
that's
thought
what
they
happened.
broke up.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
asked if they had broken up, so I think he was thinking, now she's free.
Now's
Now
my
I
time
can
to shine.
exactly.
Especially
I think
after
he
what
thought
she had
that it
just
was
said.
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
She had just said that she liked him, so he was thinking she likes me. She broke up with her boyfriend, and so I think he was thinking that was his opportunity, and that's what he approached.
And that incensed her. So she started shoving him and having a reaction, and then he got mad and I don't even think he meant to push her off the building. I think he was just pushing her away from him.
It didn't look
I
like
don't think he
realizing
meant
how
to.
close to the edge he was, and then he pushed her over. But I mean, still, no repercussions ever for this dude.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, I don't believe that he was trying to push her over. I think he was just pushing her in anger, trying to get her away, trying to retaliate. If they weren't standing on the roof of a building, it just would have been a fight. They would have walked away, and that was that.
And there's two big things we learn in this episode. One is the reason Tim Kono never said anything.
Right.
Because Teddy Demus threatens him and
Threatens
everybody that he knows into silence. So that's why he didn't say anything. It's not because he hated Oscar. It's because he was trying to protect himself and the people around him. But also that isn't this where Oliver and Mabel start stalking the funeral home? And they find out what they're doing and what they're putting in those urns. Isn't that in this episode?
Yes.
Because
this
it's
is
Theo
the
again.
episode.
And then
Mhm.
he finds them because they are not being very covert. They aren't speaking, but he just stood up like he's not going to see the shadow. So then Theo ties them up and shoves them in the back of the van.
kidnapped them.
Just adding kidnapping to everything.
And before we kind of move on to this, I do want to mention the scene between Teddy and Theo. That when Theo comes in and he knows and Demus knows right away something's wrong. That interaction and that scene between them, it was very powerful to me. It was done so well because it was kind of like, even though they have, we learned that, okay, they're grave robbers, basically,
Mhm.
they're these bad people. It was kind of like, here's this father who has power and he's gonna do anything to protect his child. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it was almost like he was there to kind of, he was comforting him at the same time. He's like, no matter what it is, let's figure this out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even though it was done in a way that was wrong, it was very well done. It was you could feel the how do I say, I don't know what the word is, but the emotion, I guess, and the passion in that, between them in that interaction, and then again with no words, so I thought it was just played very, very well,
Yeah.
between them. And then of course he goes and threatens Tim
But what
Kono.
I think is really interesting there too is they have that in the same episode where they start off with him beating him in the sides of the ear and getting upset with him. Of course, he apologizes to them, but you have to wonder if his whole life, his frustration with this, if this is him making up for how much he really hated that he had a disabled son.
Yeah, at some level, I can imagine. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's deep. Wow, that you could unpack that just alone in a whole podcast.
Yeah, the whole
That's what I bring
series.
to the
The
table.
whole season.
Yeah. Yeah, because you could look at that in so many different ways because
Mhm.
it's almost like he's trying to make up for it, but at the same time, it's almost like maybe there's a obviously resentment, for being deaf,
Yeah.
which is just utterly, sad, but
And you have to wonder if on some level Teddy thinks, well, he's deaf. He must be mad too. It's not his fault he lashes out.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a little bit of, well, he already has enough pain, and I'm going to make sure he never experiences any other pain in any capacity, so he can never have any repercussions because he's a good kid. It's just not his fault that he was dealt this deaf card.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So we go into episode 8. Those super fans that sit outside their building.
yes, I cannot wait
Super
till we
fans.
have super fans. Anybody out there that wants to be our super fans, please
cool with it.
message us on Facebook,
Yes.
send us a Gmail. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're ready.
But
We're
don't
there.
park outside
Cool
our
with
house.
it.
'Cause
But don't
if
do
you-
that.
If
No.
you find our address, I'm going to be
At our
scared
house.
for my life. I go through great pains to hide that information. So if someone ends up parked outside my house with an FFC shirt on, I'm like, I'm afraid of your abilities. I'm all scared.
make a few extra shirts, leave them, and then go about your day. And
Or pretend the address never existed in the first place.
There you
I'm cool with that. Make your presence known on social media, people.
there you go.
So super fans they have all those shirts, and I love how some of them are like, there's just one that's really on board with them, and the others are kind of complaining about, oh, it's probably this guy. Oh, it's probably not this. Oh, it's this. Are you even fan? Why do you even watch the show? So even within the super fans, they have Discord.
Right.
No, and I think it was a perfect mix too, because it's like you could tell like there was a guy that was just doing it because that's kind of he did something to do. The other one
Yeah.
that was just fully invested, you know what I mean? It's just like, these were his heroes, of the story. And then you did have the doubters. And
So this is the episode where they are certain, because especially after the Theo thing, they're absolutely certain as Teddy Demas has killed Ted Como.
Right.
Tim
Yeah.
Como. Kono. Oh my gosh, I just got his name wrong like 5 times. Tim Kono. They're certain Teddy did it. They talk to the cop like, oh, we did it. We got it. And also, Teddy takes him out of the van. It's like, oh, he should have never kidnapped you. That Theo, that old chip off the old block. He should have never done that to you. But put on a podcast saying that we didn't do it by 7 a.m. Please. Thanks. So they obviously don't listen because they think he's the murderer. So they insist on doing it. They send it to the cop. They're like, yes, we got him. We did this. It's great. It's awesome. We worked together. We got those Demases. The Demases get arrested. And after they get arrested, she finds security footage of them outside the hotel at the time of the murder. And she lets out a big long F word.
it was so deflating too. It was like, what? No.
Like what?
But I'm assuming
there
they
had to be
still
more.
went to prison for the grave robbing.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I love at the end of it when she calls Oliver. They're all celebrating with gut milk.
Yes.
But she calls
Yeah, they're
Oliver
really
and
happy.
and the look on his face is like, no. So that was fantastic. And that's where this one ends. And so Teddy gave him an ultimatum, put out saying, we are not the killers. You have to do this by 7 a.m. You have to put it out to everybody because I'm paying for you and I run you. And this is not going to happen. You're not going to implicate my son. And I don't think he knows that they think he's the killer. I think he's trying to protect Theo. I think his whole goal is don't rat out my son, say it's somebody
Right.
else. And then he comes
Yeah.
out saying Teddy Demas killed Tim Kono and Theo killed the girl. Oh, and by the way, they're grave robbers.
Da, da, da.
So that's where it ends with them getting arrested, right? Anything else in episode 8 you guys want to hit on? Your
There
hard
was
points?
one very important thing.
Okay, what's that?
We find Jan.
Yes. Yes. Actually, in this one, Jan is participating in that late night discussion of who
Yes.
it is.
And she keeps pointing back to the cat guy.
To Howard, yeah.
Right.
Howard.
To assume she has something against him.
Or she knows something. even though she's
That's what
a
I'm saying.
third.
I wonder if that's just part of it, or is that a hint for season 2? Because obviously they kind of checked him off the list,
And
but she
somebody
kept
did that end scene, so
Exactly.
yeah. So who knows? Who
I could
knows if
see
that
him, knitting while he, his cat plays with the ball of yarn.
no, it wasn't. Okay, I'm gonna talk about that episode 10.
We'll come back.
In this episode,
10 in a
this
moment.
is where they invite the super fans up to reenact everything, and Oliver's directing it. And Mabel and Oliver are like, "Yeah, we're on the same page." Oscar's like, "Okay, I'm with them." And Charles and Jan are like, "Oh no, Jan is the only right one." And I love that she just seems so dorky and so green with all this stuff. Like she's excited,
Yeah.
but it was weird how quickly and how intensely she got excited about the murder.
Yeah.
That was should have been a tip off, but it wasn't. So she's trying to push her way through all of that. Jan is still there. It was moving to episode 9. She's still very much dating Charles. They're together. That's it. They're happy. They're whatever they are. And then we meet, and then she goes back to the apartment, and she's been stabbed. She has a
finds
note.
that note.
She
Yeah.
finds the note,
She
and then at
finds
the end of
it.
the episode, we find her laying down with a stab wound in her stomach.
And spoiler alert, seeing the notes now and seeing the notes in the first episode and everything else, how did I not see
I
it?
know.
And I'm like,
there
it
was
all-
enough
it
time
was-
between.
Yeah.
You think?
Well, I don't know. I think everything was there. I mean,
Mhm.
even the and again,
Everything.
going
Oh,
back to the first and spoiler alert, but in the first episode, it's like, what did Charles say? Oh, multiple attempts to get his thoughts right. No, that was her. Just
Her attempts to get his thoughts right.
ah, and it was all there. Yeah,
Mhm.
I
All
thought
there.
it was very well done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of jumping back to episode 1 too, I wonder if there's something else that they poised for season 2, or that was just part of it. They got the title of the podcast, Only Murders in the Building, because they were trying to decide whether they should try to look into the murder that happened in the park across the street. But hearing it the second time, watching it again, it sounded like really. I'm wondering if they're going to try to use that as a plot point too for season 2, because now you've obviously got another murder. Well, you have the murder in the building, and then you have the
Mhm.
murder in the park across the street. It's New York. It could be totally unrelated, but I wonder if that served more than just deciding the title of the podcast and the series. Maybe there was a second half to that as well. Now
Right.
that everything seems to serve a further purpose
Yeah, that's true.
than what's face value.
Yeah, because it's only murders, not only the murder
That's
in
true.
this building.
Yeah, only murderers. Oh, there you go.
Only
And that
murder.
right there. So then you know that
Look at these
there's more than
revelations we're
Jan.
having as a team
I
that I'm
know.
totally
this.
participating in.
Aw, you're totally participating in it. But they tell you right there, the Only Murderers podcast title confirms that there's more than just Jan.
Tiffany's
building.
disagreeing like she's already got it. This is the episode where we get the tie-dye hoodies. By the way, I want one.
Me too.
No, that was
I'm
in
gonna
episode
try to
8. Tiffany said that was in episode 8.
According to this,
The super
No,
fans were
it
also.
I was watching 9. I was wrong.
Oh,
I
okay.
was watching 9.
I
okay.
put my faith in you, Tiffany, and you
Aw.
let me down.
Just like it was midnight.
Is this the one with Jane Lynch too?
Yes.
Yes.
She was so funny.
I love that. First of all, she's a woman doing a man, but she was his stunt double for everything, including when he didn't have a shirt on. Like, I didn't think about that. My husband pointed out, he's like, wait, she was his stunt double for everything, but she's a woman and he's a man.
She's an
Yeah, but it's a stunt
incredible.
double. Look, they look the same. He's like, no, but they're like intimate scenes he did. Oh yeah, that was his stunt double. She's clearly a woman. No one
Oh
noticed.
boy. No, it's movie magic. That's what it is. She's an artist.
Jane Lynch is so funny.
No, in reality, yeah, she is an absolutely incredible actor. It just she's funny. She's in The Marvelous Miss Maisel, which is a great
yeah,
show.
that's
Also done
right.
by Amy Sherman Palladino.
Mm-hmm.
Just hilarious, just absolutely hilarious. I still remember her from
She was also in Gilmore Girls,
yeah,
Yes,
NBC and
absolutely.
the nurse
everything.
in the
Yeah,
first Thanksgiving episode from season 1,
Yeah,
or Christmas episode.
Christmas.
just spot on with all of this,
Mhm.
and I do love how they put them side by side to try to make them look like it was the same. And it was like, if you're not paying attention, some good
That's
camera
the cover
angles.
photo for the episode, is them side by side.
Yeah.
And every day she came in wearing the exact same thing he did.
yeah, that was
Yes.
kind of
He
scary.
didn't even know she was in
Awesome.
town, and she came in
Nope.
wearing the same color,
Wearing
same
the
cut,
same-
same style, same hat, same like everything every day. Like,
Because
are you-
Jane Lynch would have a telescopic lens from across the street looking through
Absolutely.
his window.
she's making
Yeah.
a
I don't know
move
about
on
the
Jan.
character, but Jane Lynch would have done that.
So then Jane Lynch starts to take over the investigation, right? She starts to put herself in there, where they were refusing all things Jan, who Charles is in love with. Charles does not want, oh shoot, what's her name in this? What's Jane Lynch's name in this?
Uh
I don't remember. It's like Sazos or Sarzos, something weird.
Saz.
Saz.
Yeah, they call her Saz.
So she starts saying, well, hey, it's a crime of passion. This looks like a crime of passion to me. And the other one's like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And Jan and Charles are like, whoa, hey. When Jan wanted to say something, everyone was like, no, you can't join our cool club. But when Saz said something, Oliver said something along the lines of, yeah, but the way she delivered the lines was so great. Like, I can't believe her, something like that.
It was so well. It was done so well. It sounds like me.
So she accurately calls crime of passion. So that shows you that Mabel and Oliver's intuition is stronger than Charles's.
Yeah.
And it's at this point his
Mhm.
refusal. He wants to protect Jan. He wants to keep her safe from her stomach wound. And she tells him, hey, I'm the first bassoonist I have to play. Right. So that's leading up. And so Oliver and Mabel, while he goes to the concert, decide we're going to look through Tim Kono's things.
Mhm.
And their specific kind of
Her
uncomfortable
box of
toys.
stuff. We'll just call them.
And she finds out this. What would you use this for? Like a cat pretending to be a cat? Just swatting at it.
Yeah.
But then,
Oh, my.
but then they find out it's a bassoon cleaner, and it has a note, doesn't it? It's either from Jan or it's Jan's handwriting. Which is it? Because they hand both to Charles.
Yes. I don't
It
know.
was Jan's handwriting.
I think it was just the handwriting that they
Was it?
read.
But it was on the
Because that
yellow
led-
bassoon stationery too, right?
It was on a yellow note, but I don't remember if it was stationary or not. I just remember Charles holding it in his hand, reading it, and describing something about it, which I'm sure we're going to get to in a minute.
Yeah. So Saz is right. Saz, says crime of passion. They all follow her. Charles is kind of like, I'm out. I'm done with you people. I'm done with this investigation. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm done with this podcast. I'm all done. She got stabbed. My girlfriend got stabbed. I'm done. And then he goes to her symphony concert. And this young guy comes in. He's like, and Charles is like, my girlfriend's in this. Yeah, mine too. She's like a young prodigy. And his girlfriend is actually the first bassoonist and takes the place of Jan.
Hmm.
And then Charles's nose starts to bleed. And that is where the episode ends.
Wow.
Did I miss any
And I
huge
think that's
points?
when he's
Nope. You got him.
Okay.
that's it. I think
And
that's
I
when he
think
starts
that-
to realize that she might be something that she's not saying
Mhm.
that she is.
100%. Yeah. I think there was more than just at that point speculation. I think it was no doubt in his mind. That's why
Yeah.
he reacted the way he did, with his nose bleeding,
Well, was he given the bassoon cleaner then, or was he given it when he came home? Because I thought it was when he came
And
home.
when he came home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think he just has an inkling that something's not right with her, as they've been saying, but I think he might have doubts that she killed him, because that wasn't said yet. So when he comes home in episode 10, they give him the stuff like, he had this bassoon cleaner, he had this, and his neighbor said that he did have a woman, and we think it was Jan, and we think he killed her. I think Steve Martin played this perfectly, where he has you fooled into believing that he believes this. And then they have the brandies. Right. He has Jan over. He's like, oh, we're done with this. They actually think it's you, but I know it's not you. And then she starts saying stuff. What does she start saying? She starts
I
defending
think
herself.
she pretends that it's not her until he says to her that even if it was, he would still love her.
Yeah.
And that's when she realizes that in other words, she felt safe, I think, to admit that she was the killer in that moment, because she realized there was going to be no consequences or repercussions, that he was not going to maybe start yelling and call the police on her in that moment. He made it seem like he was just going to continue their life as he would be content to continue their life as they had been going on.
Yeah.
And of course, she had other intentions.
Yeah,
but-
and I think she probably figured at that point there was no reason to
Yeah.
hold back because
He knows. They know.
He already knows. He already
and
knows.
well, and she had already handed him that nice little handkerchief too.
It's true.
that
That's
is
right.
true.
Or his
By that
nosebleed.
His
time,
nosebleed, yeah.
that is very true. So even though at the beginning she was denying it and then admitted it, she had already made decisions.
That's probably why she felt so
She-
safe admitting it, because she knew he was
I
going to
think
die.
so. Because she was thinking, yeah, exactly. She was saying something to someone that was no longer going to be able to speak in a few minutes.
And
Permanently.
I
So
like that
she
she's
thought.
like, how exciting that we can do this together. Isn't it exciting knowing that we did all these things and you still love me? And it's so exciting that I killed these people. And then here's where classic C. Martin comes in. The garbled speech from the jerk, where he can't move his mouth. He's in the bathtub reading wet water or wet words. He passes out. She puts the pillow under him. She's saying that the whole apartment complex is going to get a gas out of this. And she turns on the fireplace like she's not supposed to. Fumes start going in all the apartments. People are saying, do you smell that weird? I love that the moment she leaves, Brazos throws his body up and he stops the recording that he's been taking with his face. And
His
then
face.
I wish they would have seen the entirety of him putting on his jacket and his hat, and army crawling out of that room. And
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
missed that whole scene.
The hat
And the
was a
fact that
nice
he felt
touch.
he had to put his, I know, it was a very nice touch, because he could have just like waddled his way
Yep.
out of there, crawled his way out, but he had to have his hat and his jacket,
Mhm.
and he had to have everything just right because he was leaving his
Absolutely.
apartment.
Yeah, and
It's
this
doing
whole
stuff.
time, Oliver and Mabel are in her apartment.
Mhm.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and they're going through all this stuff, and of course, they
the
find the knife,
Find the ring.
everything there. Yeah, the ring was crazy. And then what the heck was Mabel doing picking up that knife? I mean, they find it, she just picks it up. I'm like, no, don't touch
No,
that.
Her
The whole
fingerprints
last
were on
episode,
that.
she stopped grabbing things with her bare hand or with
Yeah,
gloves.
I know.
The first episode, she had gloves on going through the garbage, but the last few episodes, she's just grabbing stuff off shelves.
Yeah, and this is not going to help with the beginning ending.
No.
No.
So I'm like, you know,
Oh.
it was like, oh my gosh. And again, there's little hints here and there, you know, that you see throughout this program, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Right.
she touched the knife.
Yeah, exactly.
There you
And
go.
it's gonna bleed in. And I like that C. Martin, when he's on the elevator, he goes down
gosh.
and he just misses them. And then he's gonna go back up. And he's stuck when they find him. He's just in the middle of the elevator, the doors are just closing on his butt over and over again. He
Yes.
just keeps getting lifted up.
Absolutely perfect. So frustrating, but so funny. I was
So
like,
classic.
it absolutely classic. Just that perfect slapstick kind of. Just it reminded me of Tim Conway and the, you know, when he sticks the
Yep.
needle in his thigh. Just perfect. Just absolutely
beautiful.
perfect. Yeah, it was beautiful. Frustrating,
Yes.
but perfect.
Absolutely. I'm glad they didn't drag it out longer than they could have. It was the
Mhm.
timing was
It was
perfect.
perfect.
It was perfect timing. Other people attempting could have drug it out too long, but no,
Mhm.
I mean they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah. And then they put him in the little dog cart, strap him in, bring him to the basement where
Let's
he and
go.
Mabel somehow figure. I like that Oliver is like, you put the thing and then the thing, and then this is supposed to go to the thing, and then this is the thing over
And
here.
that
She's like,
one was
what?
just, you know,
He's like, never mind, just do this.
okay,
Fixed it.
but let's be honest, that was an accurate representation, because like, if you're in an emergency situation, do you really think it'd be like, oh well, let's remove that conduit from that vent?
Mhm.
You know,
That thing was that
that
thing.
one. That thing from that thing. Just get rid of it. But that was actually kind of cool. Oliver's smart. I really don't think he's,
Giving them
you know,
credit.
I mean, yeah, I don't think people give him enough credit, because to look at that and then in a second go, oh, that's venting into the system. You know, there's CO2 coming out, you know.
Yeah.
He's a lot smarter than I think we
Mhm.
give him credit for.
Absolutely.
I really love when Jan comes down and she's like got the gun, and then you see Steve Martin and
Stand up.
Just his stand moment.
I swear that is
monologue.
actually happening. And that was perfect Steve Martin right there. That was classic. It was perfect. This is the stuff that this generation needs to know about. Needs
yes,
to see, you don't have that kind of comedy anymore. You really don't. And he's just going, and it just cuts back, and it's just the blah 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 blah, blah. And it's perfect. It's just like I remember watching it, and I was like, oh, this is great. This is great. This is actually happening. I'm thinking Princess Bride, kind of thing. I'm like, he's standing up, from after being poisoned. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. They're going with that. That's great. Good callback. Awesome. Oh, that was clever.
the expression on his face and his head just like Stevie wondering all over the place. He can't
Yeah,
get
it's just
out.
like-
So perfect.
Can't control himself at all. I love that. Although
Obviously, Go ahead.
I would have been very happy with a kind of Princess Bride kind of thing where it's just like they disable her somehow and then he just collapses. That would have been perfect. That would have been a great
That would
callback.
have been beautiful.
But this was so good.
Golden.
This was
Yeah.
I
just
think
good.
so. I think, yeah, when they cut back to him and just knowing what's happening in his mind and seeing him just there, crunched over, just with muddled gibberish coming out, knowing how it is in his head, it was just, it was perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that she doesn't recognize that Mabel's there. So Mabel gets to save the day. The young, scrappy 28-year-old gets to save the day. Jan gets arrested. They're up in the building celebrating. And Mabel goes, what does Mabel go down for?
Champagne.
More champagne.
Champagne. That's right. And then I love that Oliver and Charles are talking on the roof and they're like they're getting louder as the sirens get louder. And then they just stop. And Oliver says, do those sound like they're getting closer?
Oh boy.
Like, hello. And they get that text. So now we got to figure out where that text came from.
What is,
Or did it come
remind me,
from
what does the
Mabel
text say?
because what was happening?
The
Get out
text said,
now.
Get out now.
Get out now.
I
Now,
think
was
that
it from Mabel because something's
They
happening?
never said.
They never say who that text
Not that I
comes
know
from.
of.
So they get the
forgot that this was
text. They get the text, and then the sirens come, and
Yeah.
so they react. They act on the sirens.
Well, no, they get the text after the sirens because they're still happily chatting and talking while the sirens are
Oh,
coming.
that
Right,
is
yeah,
right.
that
That's
happens,
true.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So we revert back to the very first scene of the whole show. They're running down the stairs to get Mabel. Mabel is in front of the dead body. We've already discussed this. We already see it.
At the
What
very
we
opening.
don't
show.
know is I thought it was Oscar.
I was scared that it was Oscar because you
Anybody else think it
see
was
the tie-dye
Yeah.
hoodie, and I'm thinking that, please, no, not Oscar. Like, they just got happy.
Yeah.
You can tell they're gonna have a wonderful relationship that's
Mhm.
budding. Please, not Oscar.
Yeah.
So I was actually kind of relieved.
Yeah, same here. I really did think it was Oscar at first, also because I'm thinking there's got to be some people that are still angry at him because
Yeah.
there's, obviously he served time, so the judge had to have at least a little bit of, I mean, obviously we know that wasn't the case, but I don't know, for whatever reason, I mean, they found him guilty and he served time. So there's people that are still blaming him for that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my goodness, and that might still play in
Yeah.
later, you know what I mean, in some way,
Maybe,
even though they know
probably
that
so.
Theo's the one involved, but he was arguing with her and
Yeah.
So
And in the beginning of this episode, he's wearing the tie-dye shirt. He
Yeah.
is talking to her, and this is the really sad part is that she just finally was able to complete her mural, and it's her, and it's Charles, and it's Oliver, and it's Oscar, and hanging outside the building from their windows, like it is seen in the beginning opening credits. That same
Yes.
sort of motif. So you know that she's finally like, I found my pack, I found my people. And that
And
same
she
day,
even admits for the first time, because she said, I'm okay. And she kind
for the
of,
first time in a long time, yeah.
paused afterwards. And he said, for the first time, I can say that and actually mean it.
Yeah.
She
So
has
she
her
had that
arguing voice back.
moment of peace, that
Mhm.
moment of peace. And they finally arrive, and this happens.
Yeah. And he is wearing that tie-dye sweatshirt in the opening credits or in the opening scene.
Mhm.
So then they roll the dead body over as Charles and Oliver come in, and it's Bunny.
Everybody's like, oh, thank God.
Bunny is
Everybody
dead
was so
with a massive
relieved.
tie-dye hoodie on her.
Mhm.
So you have to imagine she talked to Oliver earlier in that day and gave her a hoodie or forced it on her, and for some reason she put it on. I don't know why she
I
would
was
put it
gonna
on.
say, why would she have it on though? That's an interesting question.
Mhm.
So
That's
I don't
probably
know.
all part of how
Unless
she
they
got
dressed her in it afterwards. Maybe she was strangled or poisoned, and then they dressed her in afterwards and then stabbed her, killed her.
Yeah.
maybe
And
so.
why in the world did Mabel have so much blood on her? I mean, did she like?
Right.
She
did
fell
think
on
it
her.
was-
She
Oh,
fell on
okay,
her,
so
but
she
then
may
how
have
did
fallen on her,
Oh,
but
she had that
still.
knitting needle.
That's
But
what I was
out of
saying
her.
earlier. I said I
No.
didn't want to say it until the end. I think that Mabel heard something and she grabbed her knitting needle like as protection. And then she opened the door and the knitting needle was in her hand. And it, as Bunny landed on the knitting needle, because I would explain, because that knitting needle didn't make all that blood. That knitting needle was mostly out of Bunny's body. It was barely in her body. So I
Mhm.
think
Or
it was
it
just
could
like
be that
she fell on her.
maybe
and
she was
holding the needle.
poisoned. She could have
Yeah.
been poisoned. She could have been stumbling in the same thing that Steve Martin. We just saw that whole how it
But
affects a person.
Jan
know?
didn't do this. And Jan, if Jan has a partner, they're not going to do it the same way because they want to pin it on Mabel. So they're not going to poison Bunny because that will go back to Jan.
That's true. Unless
So they're
they're
gonna do something
wanting to
different.
put, they're trying to pin Tim Kono on Mabel too. So they might, instead of saying, "Well, we're going to keep these
Well, they have
murders
a sign.
separate,"
They have
we're
a
gonna.
confession from Jan that she did.
Oh, that's
Tim Cohen.
true.
Yeah, the audio.
That's true. Never mind. That's right. Then
I
so
mean, they
that
may not have known
doesn't
that,
make
but they
sense.
have audio. So I don't think they're going to play that easy route. I think that they are trying. I think there's a second murderer who is trying to frame Mabel for Bunny's death because it couldn't be poisoned. So I think that having the knitting needle in her doesn't help. But I think,
Right.
because
Absolutely.
I think what she said is, I opened the door and she was just there and she fell on me is kind of what I thought she had said. So I think she was just heard something because there, she probably fell against the door. And then Mabel's like, oh,
Maybe
what's that?
so.
Grab the knitting needle, open the door, and then Bunny fell out.
It's
And blood was
it's
all over.
suddenly she's thinking it's the man attacking her from her nightmares.
And that's why they were both on
Exactly.
the floor. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yes, because that is the thing that I had this dream that a man comes in here and I stab him, doesn't
She already has a plan in her head.
Yep.
You
So
know,
that's where
on
it
how
ends.
to defend herself. Wow.
So
And
theories
she's
coming
like,
up.
it's
I think
not
anybody's
what it
actually
looks like.
sad that Kitty's
Bunny's dead
Bunny.
now.
funny. Kitty.
No.
Although Mabel does, and this is the other thing too, is I think this is why they were trying to frame Mabel, because at the end of the episode, they said to Mabel,
Mhm.
or Mabel said to her, hey, Bunny, congratulations. You're now the most hated person in the effing building. And so I think it makes sense that it could be Howard, because I don't think Bunny liked Howard either.
Yeah.
And Howard might have wanted her dead.
And that was
Although
perfect
he
because she
does say
said that in front of
it's blood,
everybody.
so
Well, maybe
Which-
he knew. Maybe
that was
she's
just maybe it was
admitted.
an act.
Maybe. I
Who
don't know.
knows?
It could have been an act. Maybe it was part of her. Maybe he knew that that's how she would react.
No, I mean for Howard fainting at the sight of blood, maybe that was
yeah.
just an act the entire time. So no one
Maybe
would ever
so.
expect him of anything nefarious.
That's true. Anytime he was just trained himself, every time he saw blood, that was it.
I mean, seems a little flamboyant and eccentric, so
Yeah.
he keeps dead cats in a freezer.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's not normal.
No.
No.
No,
And you
that's-
got to remember
unless-
too, he
well-
was. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's not completely normal. If it's Texas, yeah, you do that before you can take it to the vet. I mean, after it's passed away, but
Well,
Not
what
in
is the
your-
name of his
your-
most recent cat? Evelyn number what?
7.
Seven.
Yeah, so
How many
Sevelin.
cats does he have in his
Seven.
he's
freezer?
either had some really bad luck or there's something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wrong with him.
So here's an idea. What if it is him and he is a supplier or the creator of the poison?
That would make sense.
Oh.
Maybe that's what's
Okay.
happening to his cats.
She's trying to pin it on him, right? Push it towards him. They discover
She knew
that
they would.
he's the one that creates it.
She knew that they would find evidence
Mhm.
with Howard. So if she pushed it towards that, then
That makes sense.
maybe if that's the case, maybe
Poison-
maybe that's why he
poison
keeps
the
losing
cat.
cats, because the cats
Just
keep
a
eating the
thought.
poison, which makes
Or
sense.
he's
Why
testing
would
it
the
on
cat?
them.
Unfortunately, I thought that too. I didn't want to have to say it, but he could be testing it on him. And if the cat
Resident
on
cat
Tim
lady is on the
Kono's-
podcast. Sorry.
No.
sorry. Well, if the cat was obviously consumed the poison at the crime scene, it's obviously maybe, I don't want to say attractive to cats, but it's like antifreeze. They don't know what they're consuming.
Yeah, they don't know.
So if it attracted the cat to the crime scene, why else would the cat make it to the crime scene? It could probably sense or recognize whatever that substance is that maybe it's been exposed to before that, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, these are just all fan theories.
Or maybe it has some form of catnip in it that he's using from his cats to dilute the, maybe, I don't know anything about catnip, so maybe he's making that into the poison somehow.
Right. And that's why the cats keep getting it.
I think that's the best theory we got, because that's the only theory I've got.
Howard did it. He's been since day one, he's been a suspect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously they have to do something with Howard because he's too significant for them to like build something up and let it go.
Mhm.
So is he either a decoy all this time, or was he just disproven too soon and everything was legitimate, all their concerns and suspicions?
Mhm.
Who knows?
And I do feel like it wasn't an accident with Bunny. I don't think, she came in, she reacted, and in self-defense or out of fear. I really feel like there is another murderer.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, there is, because there was a murder.
Yeah, no, I'm saying because they, kind of made it seem like you were talking about a minute ago, that if Bunny had kind of come in and scared her or fallen on top of her, you know what I mean? And then that knitting needle could have accidentally stabbed her. Or
To be clear, I think Bunny was already dead. I think she was placed in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the sound that Mabel heard was Bunny, her dead body was falling against the door. And then she grabbed the knitting needle to be scared, because that knitting needle didn't cause all that blood. The blood was lower and the knitting needle was barely in her sternum. It was like 90% of the way outside of her body. So if you guys want to reach out to us about this, about any of our other shows, any of our channels or fandoms, you can reach us at familyfanclub2021@gmail.com. You can find us on our Facebook page for our podcast, which is Fandom Family Chats. That's a page on Facebook. It'll list all of our groups right there. Go ahead and check them out. We've got the Resident Gilmore Girls. We've got This Is Us, whole bunch of good stuff. Check out all 15 of our groups. Join some of them. We just recently changed all of our social media handles to be Fandom Family Chats. So on Instagram and on Twitter and on TikTok, search for Fandom Family Chats and you will find us there on all of those. We'd love to hear from you.
We'll be back in the unlikely event another neighbor is murdered or we move to a more dangerous area.
And that concludes our special episode of Fandom Family Chats. Thanks so much, guys, for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.